EAGLES. Eagles.
What is up, friends? Happy Tuesday, one and all. That is Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. What's up, Gunners? Popping lock, Derek, as we speak right now. Let's go. Come on. What are we doing?
Oh, yeah. I used to
Robot.
get down back in the day, baby.
Plug in the robot.
Back in the day.
Yes.
Back in the day, boy.
Absolutely. Breaking to Electric Boogaloo was my favorite, man. That was a good one.
Let me tell you something. If I tried to do half the stuff I did back right now, I'd be in traction.
I am with you, man.
Because right now, what I was just doing now, I heard bones cracking like knuckles popping, man. I'm like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. What did I just step on? Oh, it was my bones. Yes, I know. What's up, Jalen? What's up, Kenny? What's up, Mood Swing, Bella, Fitness Rebel, M. Reyes? What's up, Neil? What's up, Brandon? What is up, Sweenbolt?
Jalen Jenkins.
Yes. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Appreciate you guys.
Neil Watson. Yes. Welcome.
Yeah. Let's do this thing on this Tuesday. Yeah. We're coming off of a Monday night doubleheader. I'll still say this, Derek. I would rather they have spread the games out a tad more than they did. I understand it. I get it. But give me a little bit more, maybe a 9 o'clock start for the second game rather than the first game. Both relatively entertaining. Carolina got a cheapie late, which made it look closer than it was. But the Pittsburgh game, while ugly, had its moments for sure.
I agree with your initial statement, but I disagree. Here's why. The second game that started at 8:15 didn't end until after 11:30.
Yeah.
So if you pushed it back to 9-ish, you're talking about after midnight, which means the networks lose part of that significant. Let's face it, the East Coast audience is way more dense than the West Coast and the Midwest audience.
Yeah.
I understand why they staggered them like this. And we got 2 more Monday night games coming up.
I know. Eagles are the first game, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
I covered that Pittsburgh-Cleveland rivalry for 10 years when I was working for NBC in Pittsburgh. Rob, let me tell you something. Last night, them boys were hitting. It was old-fashioned mugging last night, dude.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all you heard the whole game was pop, 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 pop.
Yep.
And I mean, when I say these fan bases and these teams hate each other, they hate each other. Cleveland hates Pittsburgh because they've had so much glory in their history in terms of Super Bowls 4 and 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Ben Roethlisberger era. Meanwhile, Cleveland has been a vast wasteland of disappointment. Since 1999, they've had over 30 starting quarterbacks.
Yep.
They've had one winning season under the current regime. They've only had a couple winning seasons in the last 20-something years. And so there's a lot of envy from Cleveland, and there's a lot of gloating from Pittsburgh. And let's face it, in recent years, it's been a Pittsburgh-dominated series.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. And they won ugly last night, and in large part because of their defense. I mean, you had obviously Watt being disruptive as he always is, doing what he's doing, but Highsmith making plays. I mean, they were just making plays. I didn't think Pickett looked particularly good. I didn't think Deshaun Watson looked good at all. He's fortunate he didn't get booted from the game on top of that. But the thing that overshadowed that game, Derek, was the injury to Nick Chubb, which let me give props to ESPN. They didn't show a replay of it out of because it was so gory and bad. I get it. I have no issue with that. I know some people didn't like that. I'm fine with them not doing that. But it was, again, as someone who's a fan of the game, I hate injuries, period. But I hate seeing a guy like Nick Chubb go down because he's so good and he's so kind of old school.
I mean, he finished 3rd in the league in rushing last year. He is a power back with speed. He is a fan favorite across the country in terms of just like watching running backs run the football. As the announcers are talking and explaining and giving props to ESPN, which I will also do for not re-showing the replay, they re-showed it on the Jumbotron in Pittsburgh. And while they're talking, you hear the entire fan base and behind them going, oh,
yeah.
And then unfortunately, as unluck would have it, there's various angles of it you see on social media. So because inquiring minds need to know, I had to look at it and I grimaced, man. His leg bowed like I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And Rob, it made me cringe. My wife goes, I can't look at that. I can't look at that.
Yep.
That dude tore up everything in his knee, man.
Yeah, it was terrible. Now, we're going to have today someone who has some pretty good perspective on it, who went through something very similar at 12:30.
Yep.
Former Eagle fullback Leonard Weaver is going to join us. Leonard went through the same thing in 2010, and unfortunately for Leonard, never played again.
Yep.
And I hope that's not the case for Nick. This is the second time that he's torn up that knee.
Yes.
He did it in college when he was at Georgia, and he's going to try and come back. Obviously, the other thing I kept thinking was, man, how hard is it for these guys to dial back in after they see their teammate or a guy they're going against go down like that? It's got to be really difficult.
Well, as you know, last night, as soon as they clear the field, the next play Cleveland scored.
Yep.
And you have to have a certain mental conditioning to see something like that, because initially you're thinking, man, that could have been me. That could have been me. And refocus on combating an opponent across the line of scrimmage from you. And Cleveland scores on the next play. But, there's a lot of guys thinking, these guys go to practice and go to every game thinking, I could be that next dude. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When you think about the great gruesome injury to Joe Theismann when Lawrence Taylor fell on his leg on that Monday night game and snapped his leg like a twig, and you see Lawrence Taylor jumping up, screaming for somebody to come out and get him because he knew what had happened. We've seen these things time and time again, Rob, and they're not easy. They don't get any easier to watch.
Yeah.
So with that said, I reached out to Leonard because I was at that game in 2010 against Green Bay. And later I went down to Birmingham, Alabama, and spent 2 days with him doing a rehab, did a rehab story on him. Rob, let me tell you something, man. The average person couldn't go through, number one, the knowing, laying there on the ground knowing that your leg is torn up, the excruciating pain, and the months of rehab that you try. The fact that you're trying to get back to play football again is grueling enough.
Yeah.
Just to be normal. And, as Leonard will tell you, the leg is still not 100% right, even today, what he went through. And that's the reason why I reached out to him, because if anybody can lend insight, bring it close to home. What we saw Nick Chubb go through last night is Leonard Weaver.
I agree. So we'll talk. Not only that, when he obviously keeps a very close eye on the Eagles and the NFL. So we'll hit Leonard with everything, but we'll certainly do that as well. Yeah. So Pittsburgh wins essentially on the fumble recovery and TJ Watt going in. And then the early game, New Orleans went. I got to tell you, I didn't come away overly impressed with any of the four teams. I didn't expect to be impressed by Carolina. They're still building this thing. But New Orleans didn't overly impress me at all.
No.
Pittsburgh's offense, I still have question marks, and I know they're down some people. And same with Cleveland. I don't know that Watson gets back to peak form where he was in Houston. I don't know. I haven't seen it so far.
Outside of Nick Chubb, he has everything else. He still has an athleticism, but the accuracy is not there yet. Yeah. He still has a laser for an arm. I'll give him that. But he is not on point yet with Amari Cooper the way I thought he would be at this point. And that offense is not as smooth. And obviously, that young kid who took over, Jerome Ford, is a stick also.
Woo.
So they're in decent hands with their running game. Not Nick Chubb, but their kid is not a bad runner. He's going to make a name for himself this year.
Yeah.
But in terms, here it is, week number 2, and we're still seeing a lot of sloppy football. The only thing that I saw that I wanted to see last night was that intense rivalry between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. That aspect of it lived up to expectation.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. It was definitely physical. There's no doubt about that. So there's that. The Eagles are working out a corner. William Jackson, who had been around for a while, is formerly a first-round pick. He's 30 years old at this point. If you're getting guys off the street, this is kind of what you're going to be getting. Unless you make a trade, which I still think is a distinct possibility at some point, maybe not this week. I think we're going to have to see how it goes with the Eagles trying to defend Mike Evans and Godwin and that crew. But this is kind of what it's going to be. Yesterday the big news was they brought in a punter, Braden Mann. And by the way, we're going to have Jeff McClain from the Inquirer join us at 2:00. So we'll talk to Jeff about all that kind of stuff as well. But they bring in William Jackson for a workout gunner. Look, they're thin. I was looking at the depth chart, getting ready for the show, and it's a bunch of guys who, if I said these names to you last year or 2 years ago, you wouldn't even know who they were. I mean, think with Avonte out now, you're going to have to count on. I mean, literally, you're going to be counting on like Keely Ringo to step up, Josh Jobe to step up, Eli Ricks to step up, Mario Goodrich to step up. Because keep in mind, you're down Avonte and you're down Zach McPherson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot about McPherson.
Right? So he would have been the guy you plugged in. So you're down 2 guys at that spot.
Well, are they bringing in another vet just for depth reasons, or are they still a little shaky in how they feel about the youth movement in terms of the growth or lack of growth, for that matter, at this point? Because let's face it, you send one of those kids to the Wolves, especially some of the teams that are coming up, they're going to be attacked. They're going to be attacked the majority of the game when it comes to the passing game. I want to see why. How long is McPherson out again?
I think he's done for the year.
Oh, he's done for the year. Oh,
yeah, he's a year guy.
Okay, so you're Maddox and McPherson for the year, so you got to have some more veteran presence.
Right.
When you bring in a William Jackson, you know me, I'm always thinking, why was he sitting out there this long?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll discuss another guy who just got signed who was sitting out there for a long time too in a minute in a different sport, but we'll get to that. Yeah.
Why has he been sitting out there? He's been around the block, a seasoned vet. And look at the multitude of injuries that have been happening across the league at that position as well. Mm-hmm. Why is he still sitting out there?
Yeah.
And you got to bring in somebody, no question about that. But what is he going to add? You brought in a Terrell Edmonds. What has he done since he's been here? And Terrell's in his prime at 26 years old.
Right. It just seemed like they didn't want to have to expose him to a lot of playing time. And now they're going to have to because of what's
So, I mean, you're patching up the best way you can, especially on a defense that is not going to be as stout as it was a year ago, that has question marks, that's giving up chunks of real estate. We've already given up chunks of real estate to Mac Jones and to Kirk Cousins. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is a better thrower, but you've given up chunks of real estate in back-to-back weeks, and you're going to play Baker Mayfield, who doesn't light up the world passing, but he hasn't made a mistake in 2 games.
No, he's playing good football. I mean, I don't know how this plays out long-term for him, but all you can do is go off of what we've seen. And he's played smart. He isn't forcing things. He's letting it come to him. He's smartly taking advantage of Mike Evans and the good receiving core that he has, which is exactly what you would want him to do. So he's played good football so far. I mean, the Eagles are not getting – who knows what happens in the game, but going into it, they're getting good Baker Mayfield so far. Yeah. I think he feels comfortable where he's at.
Yes, and I agree with GC. And I've said this before. I hate using this term, but this Tampa game is a trap game. It's a trap game for him. They've gotten some time to heal up and to go over a lot of things that they're not doing well on both offense and defense. But you're going down to Tampa. Tampa Bay's defense is better than the first 2 defenses you played.
Yep.
And you have another great defensive coordinator who's now had 2 games to look at what these 2 teams are doing similarly to add to what you like to do. And your offense is playing well. Plus, you got a matchup against Mike Evans. So
with a depleted defensive backfield. It's going to be a challenge, man. It's going to be a lot harder than people think. I'll tell you what's interesting too, Derek. Last year, Eagles were number 1 against the pass in football. You remember? I mean, we went into this offseason talking about they got to get better in their run defense.
Yes.
All right. So I was looking at, I know it's 2 games, but I'm going off of what we've seen so far. Here's what's interesting to me. You realize the Eagles are number 1 against the run.
Yep.
Giving up 52 yards per game, which won't keep up, but that's right now it's pretty damn good. They're 31st against the pass.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, they have almost flipped the script here, with the run and the pass here. And part of it is, let's face it, they faced a Minnesota team that doesn't have a run game.
Nope.
They faced the previous week, a New England team that can run, but they did a good job.
Yeah.
And the passing game, especially last week when Avonte went down, everything got thrown into shambles. You saw breakdowns that you don't usually see on an NFL field.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. And as of right now, they're going to have to rely on a lot of that youth again Monday night. Now, again, you have extended time to work on communications, to see what you're seeing, to get a better idea of what you're seeing in front of you. But still, it's one thing to practice it at one speed. It's a whole nother ball game to play it at lightning speed, when the lights go up for real. How quickly can these kids accelerate their learning curve to get ready for what's to come? what you're facing is another Patriots team, another Tampa Bay team that is suspect in terms of running the football, but they can throw the football, And I can see Baker Mayfield putting the ball up 40 times a game in this game. Can the Eagles get enough pressure on him and get him down enough and make him throw it away enough to make this a one-sided game? That I don't know. They get good pressure, but they're not getting the quarterbacks down to the ground with the frequency that we thought they would. And I believe part of it is due to Hassan Reddick still trying to get that thumb right. But we've also seen quarterbacks do a better job of stepping up and stepping away from where the pressure is coming from. Mm-hmm. And that's huge in terms of buying an extra second or two until somebody frees themselves up either down the sideline or the middle of the field.
Yep, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what adjustments the Eagles make. I think it's incumbent upon them to figure out getting some kind of rhythm in the passing game. I'd like to see them try to get that going early in the game against Tampa Bay. Again, as you mentioned, Derek, this is a good defense. They're going to come in here with a pass rush, with good linebacker play. Tampa's no joke. I think ultimately, I think Baker's going to revert back to Baker as the year goes on, and not having a running game will catch up to them at some point. Maybe in this game it does. I don't know. The Eagles seem like they can make them one-dimensional in this game. Don't allow Rachaad White to do anything and then just tee off on Baker. If that's the case, that's how you win the game. But I don't know. Trap. Maybe it's a trap. I don't think they played their best football. So it's not like the Eagles come in cruising and they're just going to look past people. I think I think winning the way that they've won served as a wake-up call this week. So I think they'll be ready.
I agree too. Rob. But again, it's point counterpoint. Man, you're facing three great defensive minds in consecutive weeks. And Todd Bowles likes to throw a wrinkle. Will he stack the line of scrimmage and leave his corners on an island with these guys? Todd Bowles is not shy about having his corners play man-to-man coverage because they're physical. They clutch and grab. Tampa Bay, through the years, in recent years, is the best team in the NFL at getting away with clutch and grab. I don't know why they do, but they do. And they'll clutch and grab. They're very sneaky how they do it, but they do a great job at it. Will the refs be looking for that on Monday night? That's going to be huge. But they've got the personnel that can go man-to-man with the Eagles wideouts in this game. And if that is the case, then you're going to be stacking more people at the line of scrimmage, which means the run lanes are not going to be there frequently for Jalen if he has to take off. They have to try to establish that running game against this Tampa front. But when you got Shaq Barrett, Levante David, and Devin White as filling the gaps in your defense, that's a pretty formidable. And Vita Vea at 330-plus pounds clogging up the middle. Yeah, that's a formidable group to try to get a lot of success against.
Well, and Vita Vea is also a guy who will get to the quarterback. He is a multi-talented defensive tackle. That he is, Gunner, for me on that defensive line. He's priority one.
Yes.
Yeah, he is, man. And you talk about a team, the Eagles have allowed 7 sacks through 2 games.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. And they're going to be coming after. They are coming after Jalen. And the Eagles know that. Sirianni knows that. Brian Johnson knows that. Todd Bowles likes to come from all different angles with his blitz, even delayed blitz. He likes to come from different angles. If Jalen holds that ball 1 second too long, he's going to be tap dancing back there and have to duck and run. Because Tampa's not going to give you a whole lot of time to just sit back there and play with the football. No question about that. That's why it's such an intriguing matchup. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good game. That the line has come down to 5.5. It was 6.5 originally for those of you who pay attention to that. Even if you're not betting it, I think it's just interesting to see the way the trend is going. And it may dip a little bit more. This past week did too. I mean, that's the way it went with the Minnesota game as well. All right, let me hit a couple other things that are happening in Philadelphia sports. Again, we'll have Leonard Weaver coming up at 12:30. At 2:00, Jeff McClain from the Inquirer. The Sixers make a move, Derek, and this is what we referenced a minute ago here. They signed Kelly Oubre. Now you look at his numbers, and you're saying to yourself, wait a minute. He averaged 20 points per game, 5 rebounds. No one even gave him the league minimum. And the Sixers get him now on September 19th when we're like a month from camp starting. Why?
That's my biggest question, Rob. He averages, 20 points a game?
Yeah.
Sixers need shooting. Definitely if James Harden decides to take his stance that he's not showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So they need firepower. He can shoot it. He can shoot it from three also. But that's my big question. Why didn't anybody want this guy? Why was he still sitting out there? And why did the 76ers wait until now? Is it a desperation move because they now understand Harden's not coming through that door? What is the reason behind this, Rob? This is bad written all over it with this Sixers team, man. And you try to be optimistic, but considering what we've heard, we've seen from James Harden himself in videos, and the 76ers brass has remained behind closed doors, have not made a statement in one way, shape, or form. The league is talking about fining James Harden if he doesn't show up, or fining him because of what he said about Daryl Morey, calling him a liar several times. This is a mess, man, unfolding right now in front of us.
I think they're throwing darts. I really do. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing. The Clippers aren't interested now, which is one of the things that came out over the weekend. I think Oubre's an insurance policy, as you mentioned, and he's not a bad insurance policy, but he's an insurance policy. He's a limited player. He's a guy who's what did he average? 1 assist last year?
Yeah.
He's not always going to give you, everything on the defensive end. He's got the measurables. He's 7'2" with his wingspan. He can score, right? He should be a guy who's a good rebounder with his size and his wingspan, but he isn't always. Like it's a move that doesn't hurt you. If you're paying him the league minimum, hey man, have at it. I've never been a huge fan of his game personally, but the situation that they're in, knowing Harden is a total wild card in this, I don't think it's a bad move for the Sixers. Honestly, I think it's as good as you're going to find anybody sitting out on the street right now.
I agree, and they need bodies. They need somebody. You're right, but it's just again falls under the umbrella of everybody's looking for an additional scorer, and why was he still out there? Now this stuff will come out eventually. It does. There's nothing that's kept secret forever.
Yeah.
If he comes in here and he gives them 15, 20, 22 points a game and the Sixers are winning games, hey, great steal for them. A bargain basement price.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. All right, let me throw this one at you, Derek. So the Pro Football Hall of Fame nominees, the modern era nominees are out there. And I'll give you some Eagles who are eligible here, okay? Donovan.
Okay.
Randall, Mike Vick, Ricky Waters, Brian Westbrook, Irving Fryer, Eric Allen, Troy Vincent, David Akers, Jeff Fiegels, Sean Landeta, Brian Mitchell. I just gave you a lot of names. I understand. Of any of those, do you think anybody should get in? Will any of them get in your estimation?
The first question I asked is why isn't Eric Allen in already?
That if there is a number one that's like in blinking lights to me,
yes,
I will never understand it. It's Eric Allen. I have no idea. Derek, he played a ton. He has a ton of interceptions. He has a ton of pick sixes. He was tough as nails. I have no comprehension of why Eric Allen is not in.
Ever since I've been to Philadelphia and studied that situation, I don't get it, Rob. When you stack him up against other, DBs that have gotten into the Hall of Fame, why is he not in? And how many times has he been on that ballot, to get in? And he still gets snubbed. I don't understand it. I don't think Donovan will get in for a while. Westbrook won't get in. No. Brian Mitchell is a borderline Hall of Fame.
Mitchell should be in. I think
Mitchell should be in. When you consider what he did in the return game, there's no question he should be in.
Yeah.
The other players, you can put a lot of question marks, pros and cons, in terms of why or why not. But those two players, Eric Allen and Brian Mitchell, should definitely cross that threshold.
Yeah, they're my two. I think there's a lot of close here. Like, I think for me, Donovan falls into the very good, not great category. I know a lot of people would argue that. Michael Vick, to me, missed too much time. And after he left the Eagles, it was just kind of for him, which hurts him a little bit. I think Ricky Waters has a really strong case. People, for some reason, just really overlook what he did. But he's probably falls into the very good, not great. I think Troy Vincent was very good, not great.
Yes.
I think Irving Fryer was very good, not great. Fiegels and Akers, that we'd have to really start arguing like kickers and Akers' numbers are pretty remarkable. Fiegels punted forever.
Yep.
I would say Allen and Mitchell for me.
I agree. Yeah. Those are my two that should be in, and they've been on the balance long enough to be able to get in.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they keep getting snubbed by the decision makers. I'm waiting to see who they're stacked up against. Now, those are just the Eagles you talked about. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting to see the full list of who they're stacked up against to get a better idea and understanding of if this or is not their year. If they're up against a bunch of big names, they're not getting in. Mm-hmm. Especially if they haven't gotten in by now, they're going to get bypassed again.
Right.
They may not get in until they get to that exemption level.
Right. And that's a long time, man.
Yes.
It's a long wait. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get a timeout. Leonard Weaver's going to join us on the other side. We'll talk to him about present-day Eagles, about going through the same kind of injury, or at least similar injury that Nick Chubb went through, and his experience in that. He also has aspirations. He's coaching in college right now. He wants to coach in the NFL. A lot to dig into with Leonard when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. All right, let's talk about Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Yes, Bravo Pizza of Havertown. I've been going there since I was a kid. Family owned since 1985. Just an unbelievable place. I'm in there each week. I see what's going on there and the just incredible options from a food standpoint and the great service that they provide. They have 20 different styles of pizza. They have slices to go. They have the upside down, which I love, but they have, you name it, they'll make it. Specialized pizza, however you want it. And if you're not up for pizza, great. They have fresh pasta, sandwiches, wraps, wings, salads. Bravo Pizza is also committed to the community. They have fundraisers for charities, for schools, for little leagues, where the proceeds go to those organizations. We told you about the Team Foster charity, where they match up a support dog with a veteran. It's just a great cause. Bravo Pizza's been just doing it for so long. It's certainly a stop that you want to make. Follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on their Instagram or Facebook page for daily specials and promotions. They're at 1305 Westchester Pike in the Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown. 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown. Give them a call, 610-446-3810. 610-446-3810. Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. We appreciate it. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. That's the gun. I am Rob Ellis. Hit that like button if you could, friends. All right, joining us right now, he was a Philadelphia Eagle for the 09 and 10 season, played 6 years in the NFL, is currently the running backs coach at his alma mater. Yes, Carson Newman University, the one and only Leonard Weaver. Coach Weaver, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Oh, man, how are you guys doing? Look at those handsome faces right there, man. You
Look
guys
at you.
are moving, man.
Look at Coach Weaver.
I like it. I like it.
I had to put it up there. It has a ring to it.
So let's start there. I know you've been doing this for a while. You were doing it at the high school level. Mm-hmm. You moved back up to your alma mater at Carson Newman, where you had so much success as a player. How's it going as a coach?
Oh man, it's been awesome, man. It's pretty much everything that I've desired and wanted to do. It's nothing better than being able to play the game that you loved, be able to play it at a high level, and now give back to those young men who aspire to go there. So it's been awesome to watch and to learn, because I've been learning a whole lot just about coaching and the coaching world, man. And it's been great developing all these relationships, man. It's been awesome.
Oh, good.
So let's see. You started at the high school level.
Yep.
Now you're at the college level.
Yeah.
Is your ultimate goal to get back to that NFL level?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I would relish the opportunity. And, this has always been kind of the goal since I've been involved in coaching. When I got back in, of course, I reached out to some coaching buddies. And the biggest thing was learning how to coach. It's one thing that, when you play the game and you were able to be a good player. But I think it's a whole nother deal what I've learned through coaching. It's a whole nother ball game when it comes to actually explaining the game and game planning and being able to actually teach players to perform the techniques or skills that you're actually trying to, put up and teach them. So it's been great. It's been a great learning curve. It's been awesome to learn from each level how the players change, how the game has changed. And then to add recruiting on top of it, man, that's a whole nother ball game in itself. So it's been great to kind of learn and develop as a coach, man. It's been very exciting.
Well, Larry, I mean, you did it the hard way, man. I mean, Division II, you were a tight end, right? I mean, sir. Then you undrafted, and you have some really good years in Seattle, and you end up coming here to Philadelphia, and you're an all-pro in 09, and you finally get your just due with the nice contract going into 10, and then your first carry of 10, boom, the injury against Green Bay, man. And I know, I'm sure everybody's asking about Nick Chubb last night, and we hate seeing that kind of stuff. But first off, give us your memories of your years here in Philly. I know it was short, but what we thought about that time.
Well, first of all, the open arms. I think me and Philly, the city of Philly, had something in common. Like you said and alluded to earlier, just my background, coming from small beginnings and having to bust my tail to get there. That's one of the things that we had in common, I think. And that's one of the reasons why the fans, I believe, accepted me for who I was and what I was about. And they knew that I was going to come to work and work hard. So I think that love affair between us definitely began at that particular point in time. And then I think the playmaking ability kind of helped just a little bit, except for that San Francisco game. That we don't even talk about that. We're not going to bring that
up. We don't go there.
But as far as during that time, man, experiencing that injury, it was really tough for me, man. I remember D Gunn actually coming down and visiting me, having, some time and spending some time with me. While there was smiles, and it was great to see him and some Philip natives that would come down and visit, the process that I had to go through after those guys left and had to deal with within myself and not being able to play the game and possibly never, ever being able to walk or be able to play the game of football again. All those feelings and emotions, man, they flooded me over those first couple years. It was really tough to get over. But eventually, I had some help from some friends and family who really, prayed for me and really helped me out. But it was really a tough time.
Hey, Leonard, when you initially got injured, I was there covering that game, and the whole stadium just went, oh. Did you know right away that it was devastating?
I want to say out loud, no. But I knew, I heard it pop. I heard every pop. I heard every ligament kind of dismember. I felt it. And probably about 30 seconds after the initial shock and pain, everything went numb. And then upon getting up, I couldn't move my foot. So I kind of knew it was serious, but I was trying to be hopeful and, very uplifting about the possibilities to be able to return. And once I got the news from Doc, in the MRI room there at the stadium, and then once I got a chance to talk with Dr. Andrews, it became a little bit more surreal for me about my future and what had entailed, especially after getting the contract and having the success. And I was looking forward to ending my career there as a player, but not going out like that.
Was it as dire as you weren't sure if you were going to walk again? Like, was it, forget football for a minute. You're just talking about your health for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Was it that bad?
It was that bad. In terms of just the knee, all of the reconstruction that had to be done. And then if we take it from the knee, we got to go down to the foot. I lost, permanent, pretty much disabled, from being able to, permanent drop foot is what they call it. So it was really a tough time. The first year or two being in a wheelchair and first year rather being in a wheelchair, not being able to move, having to have almost 2 emergency surgeries from my knee on my foot. Because, what was going on. So it was really tough. And then having to, relocate, from my family. We had to move to Birmingham, literally. Yeah. So it was a real tough time, man. And, I'm just thankful for the prayers of the people and the fans and the support that I got, especially D-Gun. He's, been in my corner since day one. I appreciate him. It was a blessing that the Lord allowed me to be able to see through it.
As Leonard alluded to, I went down to Birmingham, Alabama with my photographer, Brian Spielman, and we spent 2 days with him and his trainers doing a story on him going through his rehab. And Rob, I can't tell you how many times you would see tears welling up in his eyes as they twisted and turned. But the most gut-wrenching part was, now this is like almost a year after he suffered that injury. They're showing me the pictures of the surgery on his foot alone.
Right.
And refresh my memory, Leonard, but they took basically a button to hold the tendon in the bottom. They showed me the opening in his bottom of his foot where a button was to hold a tendon in place in the foot that went all the way up to the knee area. And I'm not a squeamish person. And I was like, man, I had chills just watching that. And then to watch Leonard get on the tables, get on the different apparatuses, and they push him to a point where he wanted to stop, and they said, no, you're not ready to stop yet. And to see a grown man have tears welling up in his eyes a year later because he still can't perform at a normal function as he had been before that injury, that was one of the most gut-wrenching things that I'd ever seen. Leonard, talk about the emotional highs and lows that you had to go through just to get back close to a normal life of being able to walk again.
It was real tough. It was, I think in the interview when we were talking, it was, I said it was something like losing a loved one, We're talking about just the mental portion of getting back to normalcy. We're not even talking about, like you said, the game. That was really tough because all I could picture in my mind was trying to get back to the game. If you go back and look at it on YouTube, that's what I'm talking about, making the greatest comeback ever. But in my heart, at some point in time, I realized I got to let this go. And at that particular point, I knew for sure not just the mental portion of getting back to normalcy, but I'm not even going to be able to play the game that I busted my tail so hard for, that I worked so hard for. It was draining, physically, mentally, just to get out of bed some days because I love the game of football. It's nothing like, D-Gun, I wish young men could listen to this that are playing this game.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. I don't think people really understand to be amongst some of the best athletes in the world and to compete week in and week out, and then to get paid for it. That's that's not really work. When you enjoy what you do, it's not even considered work. It's considered fun. And to have that taken away and to have to go through that, it was really tough. It was really a tough deal for me the first couple years. I struggled badly personally in my personal life. I struggled mentally. I really went through a lot of struggles, and it wasn't until I got back home to Florida where I was able to kind of go out and kind of talk to some kids about it. And it was kind of there where I was reminded when I was in Seattle and I got hurt, I was able to coach with Terry Metcalf. He allowed me to come on and kind of do the same thing. I started mentoring some of the guys, and then eventually I became a coach. And I remember the feeling that I felt if I wasn't going to be able to play the game and I wasn't going to be able to actually show my talent, then I sure can give back to the game by giving those young men and women or the opportunity to be able to coach them. So it sparked and ignited something inside of me, like a fire, man, that I said I'm never going to turn back from. And since then, it's been just that way.
That's awesome. Well, last one on the injury, because I do want to talk about what you're doing now, Leonard. But when you see something like Nick Chubb last night, and I'm not trying to make light of this, do you have almost a little like PTSD? Like, is there just like something that goes out your heart when you see something like that? And will you reach out to him at any point?
I definitely plan on reaching out to him, but I have not seen it. I had a lot of the guys come in this morning to actually tell me about it because
don't look at it.
But I'm going to tell you this, what I did after that for me mentally, I actually took a picture. I don't know if D-Gun remembers seeing this, but in my locker, I used to have a picture of it. It's a picture of my head on the ground, my knee going all the way back. It's a still photo. I kept that in remembrance of me in that moment, not for the pain's sake, but so that I wouldn't be afraid of the moment of doing something else. For instance, if I was riding a motorcycle and I fell off the motorcycle, my attitude would be get back on as soon as I can so that it doesn't disrupt my life. And that's the mentality that I took from that. So not seeing the injury, I definitely want to reach out to him. Matter of fact, his coach, Stump Mitchell, was my coach in Seattle for so many years as well. So I definitely plan on it because I do understand right now exactly what he's feeling. I can imagine what he's thinking. I can imagine what he's feeling emotionally, and especially when he meets with those doctors this morning and he gets that story on where he is. I pray to God that it's nothing that's season or that's career ending for him. I pray that he can come back. But from what I've heard, it was absolutely gruesome.
It was nasty. Yep.
Leonard, initially, the injury itself is devastating. Then the rehab is grueling and emotional enough, but there is a mental and spiritual element of this that's just as tough, if not tougher, to fight. Did you battle depression, and if so, for how long?
Man, that's what absolutely. I did for those first few years. I remember I was sitting in my bed, and after that Packers game, I was able to go down, getting ready, getting prepped to go to Birmingham, and they played in Detroit that next week. And I remember the feeling of watching all of those guys playing and me not being there. Immediately, man, I would say for myself, depression hit. I was sitting there by myself, literally in tears, because I'm thinking in my head, like, I can't go out onto the field. I can't go sniff the air of the practice field. I mean, just all the things that you don't even think about as a player, the fans screaming and the preparation portion, and then being able to go out and perform. And here's the other part, being able to actually run again, to be able to put on a cleat or a shoe and actually run. Those things, they hit me like a flood, man. And so it was a massive, I had a lot of help. I really had a lot of help, but it was very, very tough for me for the first couple of years.
How you liking, you did your thing at the high school level. How you liking the college level, man, especially being back at your old school?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I love it. I don't have to deal with many parents at all. I don't have to deal with the parents. I love it, man. I don't have to worry about parents coming in.
Playing time.
Yeah, why are you not playing? But no, I love it because I get to coach young men. I get to have those young men conversations. I get to share with them things in life that maybe they're going through, and I can chime in and give a little wisdom. I love the relationship portion of it where, we can interact on a level where there's more understanding because of where they're trying to go and what they're trying to accomplish. And so it's been great, man. I absolutely love it.
Leonard, it's funny in some ways you should say that, because I can't tell you how many former athletes and a lot of guys, Brian Dawkins, Hugh Douglas, all these guys who have told me emphatically, I want nothing to do with coaching at the pro level or the college level, because, man, these kids nowadays are a different breed than when we came through.
Yeah.
You can't coach them collectively. You have to coach them individually now. So,
you know what?
So how did you come to grips with today's athlete is a lot different than when you were coaching, and how do you relate to them today?
That's what it's about, D-Gun. And that's what I learned. And I think that's what I was able to grasp so quickly at the high school level, even though you're dealing with some parents that are worried about playing time. I was able to relate to the kids and make myself available to them on a level where I would listen and I would try to understand where they're coming from. You're right. Today's athlete is nothing like when I grew up, where we had to just put our head down, get to work, and do what you're supposed to do in that sense. But I think every athlete wants to be seen. They want to be seen as an individual that's just as important as the other. And my philosophy as a coach has always been to connect with the player and be as honest and be as straightforward with that individual as possible, so that they understand the expectations that I expect of them. And I use that in my running back room, where it comes to, understanding the relationship and the dynamics we have with each one of the kids. So I don't necessarily have to coach them all individually, but we do have those individuals moments. But I think collectively, when they understand that, I think it makes it easier for you to deliver a message so that they understand. But you're still going to have those kids who they're going to try to talk and run their mouth. And I can only imagine what it's like at the pro level where, you probably deal with some guys, and what they're talking about is some guys that probably are getting paid more than some of the coaches. And there's a level of disrespect. But I've learned that as long as they're understanding, and we're talking about dealing with young men at the college level, I think it's all the same. Here it is. We got to have a man-to-man talk about what's to be expected, how it's to be done, because there are plenty of coaches who are doing it, who played at each level. Matter of fact, Coach Audrey Denson, who's a friend of mine, he's with the Arizona Cardinals now. I mean, he just literally came from Charleston Southern, and I mean, so to hear his transition and his story is a little bit different, but it all evolves around getting to understand that a relationship is needed. And I think once a player or a kid realizes that your relationship is intentional and it's real, and that when you talk to them, it's not about being fake, it's not about being phony, I think the respect level is what evens the playing field with those guys.
I want to hit you with a couple present day Eagles things, Leonard, but let me just, I'm just thinking of this as you make your point there very eloquently, by the way.
Thank you.
What do you think about what's going on with Deion Sanders and the whole explosion of Colorado, man? I mean, they go from one win, no one cares, to we don't even talk about, I was saying this to Gunner yesterday, we don't talk about Georgia. Georgia's won back-to-back, and we're talking about Colorado before any other school.
That's right.
It's crazy how quickly he's put them back on the map.
I think Deion is, to be honest with you, I think we have similar philosophies. I think he's just on a greater level than me. It's about relating to the kids, and I think he does a great job of that. It really seems like he has not only his sons in his corner, but those kids that are around him. One of the greatest things I think that we both have in common, and when I say me and Deion, I'm talking about in terms of playing the game of football. We both played in the NFL. Now, clearly, his level, he was on another level in terms of what he did. But kids respect that. But they also respect the fact that you're willing to discipline them in love and be honest with them at the same time, as long as it's consistent. When kids see consistency, they will sell out for whatever you do. As long as there's no treatment from the top to the bottom down where guys are being, man, they will sell out because they understand this is a real deal. And this is honesty. This is love. And that's how they translate it. That's what I've learned. And so to watch him come out there flashy like he's always been, doing his thing with the glasses, sometimes I'm like, Deion, would you please take that stuff off, man? But that's who he is. And he's always been that way. And kids love that. And so I think it's phenomenal what he's doing. My thing is, me and my wife was talking about what is it going to be like when his kids graduate? That's what we were talking about. Like, how is that going to transpire for him coaching? Because I think he's going to be very successful where he is in Boulder, because Deion's not only a marketing genius, but he's also he has gravitational pull, and people want to be around somebody like that, and he has the support. So kudos to Deion, man. Congratulations for what he's doing up there, man. That's awesome.
Leonard, look beyond just Deion being a Hall of Fame NFL player. He has changed the landscape in a matter of 7 months. He has changed the landscape in terms of how you recruit, which is making the old school stiff collar coaches cringe right now, but they're going to have to get on board now to compete. The days of the glossy brochure you get at your home as an 18-year-old kid, Georgia, Alabama, Florida's recruit me. He's very visible, practices, behind the door meetings, stuff like that. Look at the entertainment value. He's got The Rock coming in.
That's right.
Lil Wayne. Stuff, and all these old school coaches like, that's not how you recruit. Yes, it is nowadays, because look what's happening. These impressionable 18-year-olds who live and die social media will now consider Colorado because of the national platform they've been put on, because of the way he goes about his business.
Well, when you think about what you're saying, D-Gun, we're talking about Deion being touchable. Right.
Yes,
that's the thing. He makes himself available, and he makes himself reachable for those kids. He doesn't come out and he's not, and this is not to talk about any coaches out there, but I think that's what makes him a gravitational magnet outside of what he's been able to do off the field, or on the field rather, is that he's somebody you can reach out to, talk to, touch, and he's going to give you his opinion. He's going to give you his thoughts on it, and it's going to come from a genuine place, at least to that individual. That is key for any recruiting. Any kid, man, will look at your brochure and be like, oh, that's great. But I tell you what, for myself, like if I call a kid or if I do a FaceTime versus a call, that changes the platform. It's like, man, coach FaceTime, he's showing his buddies. So to be reachable, to be touchable, to me is absolutely essential, especially in nowadays recruiting, because kids want to know that you care beyond a letter, because they don't get to see the face. When you write a letter, you don't have to show your genuine, ness. You can write up anything you want, but when I see your face and I get to look at your eyes and I get to hear from the head coach of a big program, that does some things.
Gunner, we're both going. You got us, coach. You got us both, man. Let's go.
I'll play for you, Leonard, right now. I can get you 1.5 yards per carry.
Yeah,
that's all I need, baby.
Situationally,
baby, we got you covered, man.
We're very situational guys.
I used to be a halfback. Now I'm a slow fullback.
Yeah. The situation for us is sitting up in the stands. Before present day, I want to take you back to 2017. As an Eagles alum, how cool was it for you watching them finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl, Leonard? I mean, what was that feeling like? And just walk me through it.
Man, it was great. It was great to watch those guys. I mean, you're talking about the storylines that they had. And I'm thinking of guys that were actually younger when I was there, B. Graham, some of those guys that I had a chance to play with, and it wasn't many there. To watch them get over that hump was huge, because we had come so close ourselves. Yeah. We lost to Dallas in the first round. And every year for me, it's almost like I've been in the playoffs every single year that I was in the league, other than 2 in Seattle and in Philly, where we missed it. But it was awesome, man, to watch that transpire. Those guys busted their tail. They went against the odds. They did something that people never thought was possible. And they did it with the guys that were just in that locker room, who understood the mission. They galvanized, they came together, and they accomplished, man. To watch any player or team overcome the odds, especially when you're preceding a great coach in Andy Reid, and then to watch Doug lead those guys through that, man, that was phenomenal. And for him too. It was phenomenal to watch all those guys, Deuce, him, those guys get that ring on their finger. It was absolutely awesome, man. And it speaks volumes about the organization, as well as Coach Peterson and the guys he had on that team.
Leonard, what do you think about this young man, Jalen Hurts? Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is the face of the league. Mm-hmm. Jalen Hurts and his style of play, his athleticism is taking the league by storm also.
You know what? I think I did an interview probably about last year, about this year, or about last year rather, about how they would go to the Super Bowl and how they were going to make it. And I kind of got laughed at a little bit, but what I see in him is what you want in a leader, right? You want somebody who's confident, but not too flamboyant. He's very, very patient. He's sort of his own kind of got the cerebral stance of he understands what's going on. He's not easily off kiltered. He's not taken off by anything. He just knows to focus. And I watched him do that when he played against the Bulldogs and he was benched. This young man came back the next year and fought with the same school. Then he ended up transferring. He did the same thing when he went over. So to watch his career transpire to where it is, it doesn't shock me that you have an awesome quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I like him personally. I love what he brings to the game. He makes you as a defender have to guard him. You have to account for who he is as a runner and a passer. You have to be alert that he can run the option. He can fling the thing down the field. I mean, he can read the defense. So to me, I think he's the total package and what you need. I love his attitude. He's a guy that you can believe in and a guy that you can build a team around. And I love that. I love all those things about him.
What do you think about their chances this year? I mean, we know the history. It's very difficult to get back there after you either win it or get there and lose like the Eagles did. What do you think about their chances this year?
You know, I think it's going to be tough. It's always tough after a loss like that. We went through that in Seattle after the 05 season when we played Pittsburgh Steelers. It's always tough, but it is possible. I think what those guys are going to have to do is they're going to have to really sit down as a team, come together and figure out, hey, we got to take this thing literally one practice at a time. I think what you do when you realize where you are, you got to take it one step, one practice, literally each day and say, look, we got to knock out this goal. We got to knock out this goal. But do I think it's possible? Absolutely. I do think it's possible. It's still early in the season, still early in the year. It is definitely possible for things to turn around. And usually, historically, Philly has always turned things around, usually in the second half of the season. We usually go on that 8-9 win run. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Last one from me, the running back position in general, the disrespect, the salaries, guys who were quality players having hard times even finding jobs at this point. And I know you feel probably even more as a guy who was a fullback, which is even feels like more of a dying breed. But what do you think about what's going on out there with the running backs?
I've been talking to a few people about it. I think it's kind of honestly crazy because here's why. As a running back, we're called to do just as much as the quarterback when we have to know protections. We have to understand what the defense is doing. We also have to become a runner, but we also have to become a blocker. Then we also have to become a receiver. We are literally every position on that field that's on that field in one person. And we have to do it at a level that's high. And so for me, the value of having a running back who knows how to protect, who understands route running, who can still run the ball effectively, and who can still go back there and be able to make plays, I think it's so valuable. I mean, because if you think about it, everything right now is to the more so air raid type of offense, right? I just need 4 receivers. But let me tell you something. Nothing else changes the playoffs like running the football. You gotta be able to run the football. You can go out there and toss it 50 times all you want. At the end of the day, that defense is going to stop. They're going to stop dropping somebody. Oh, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to, hey, man, I'll drop 8 if you're going to keep throwing it deep. But, man, if I hand it off to a running back and he goes 50, now I got to bring everybody back in. So, to me, I think the running back position is an equalizer position, especially when you have somebody who's really good at it. And I do think it's kind of undervalued because they say, well, we get beat up. Of course we get beat up because we're meant to hold everything on our shoulders. That's what we do. We're the sacrificial lamb, just like our O-linemen that go out there and get battered because we want our team to progress and move forward. So, yes, I do think it's a problem. I do think these guys need to be paid, and I do think it needs to be reconsidered that they're just as valuable as your receivers and your quarterback is.
So, Leonard, real quick, this summer, a lot of the big name running backs had a Zoom meeting to discuss their situation. And then recently the NFL filed a grievance against the NFLPA, basically saying the NFLPA has told running backs to fake injuries. I agree with, and I've said what you've said 100% about why are the running backs being so devalued? What do you think their legitimate stance is? How can they protest this? Because quarterbacks, wide receivers, D tackles, safeties, cornerbacks, all getting paid, and yet the running back has been pushed to the vast wasteland of the NFL. What kind of protest can they make as a collective group to have their voice heard?
Man, I mean, at the top of my head, D-Gun, I don't think I can say what I really want to say. But no, but what I will say seriously is those guys are going to have to go out and perform. As cliche as it may be, we have to show our value by what we do. And we have to do it consistently. Right now, I know with the new CBA, there are a lot of different things that have changed, especially since I've exited the league concerning that and what they can do. But those guys are going to have to play, and go out there and show them over and over again, unfortunately, how valuable they are. And it's times like this that you would want to tell a guy, hey, man, don't go to practice or don't go do this. But at the end of the day, these guys got families as well, and they got to go out and perform. And so my encouragement to all those young men, nothing wrong with having those meetings, man. Keep having those meetings. But eventually, D-Gun, it's going to come down who has the answer to your question. And my answer is, guys, keep going out and performing and keep busting your tail and keep making it work.
Yeah. Oh, man, Leonard, great stuff, man.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
I have no doubt you will be coaching in the NFL very shortly, just from having this conversation with you, man. You are a very motivational guy. You get it, man, and you grab people. So I appreciate you sharing your insights. We'd love to have you on later in the season too, man.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. Both of you gentlemen, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
And when you get to the NFL, can you get me and Rob some sideline passes?
First of all, anything you need, D-Gun, I got you. And you too, Rob.
I'll be his assistant. Just give me, I just hang on D-Gun's coattails, Leonard.
Well, then maybe I'll also have you over and cook you guys some Leonard Weaver steaks or something. The L-Dub steaks. We'll get together.
That's a date.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man, Leonard, thanks, man. Great catching up. You can continued success this year with the squad as well. Keep killing it, man. We appreciate it.
Love you, man. Love you, bro.
Man. You guys take care, man.
All right, take care. That is Coach Leonard Weaver. He is the running backs coach for Carson Newman University. He was an all-pro with the Eagles in 2009. Unfortunately, got injured in 2010. But he did, thankfully, Derek, he did get a nice contract that offseason before that 2010 season. But, man, You're right. We were talking before the show, and you're like, you know what, Leonard be a good guy to talk about this stuff. But yeah, I haven't heard from Leonard in a long time. Boy, he was awesome. That was entertaining.
We text each other out of the blue occasionally, man, and it's just so great to see him bounce back the way he did, Rob. Because, like I said, I got up close and personal with him when he went through the trials and tribulations of trying to come back.
Yeah,
and there were some dark moments in his life. You go from being this gladiator. And let's face it, football players, they feel that they're these gladiators that cannot be, damaged. And even though they see injuries every day, there's still a gladiator mentality. And when you're decimated to the point of you can't function on your own and you need help just to get up and just to move around, and then you're forced to rehab at a certain pace, something that the normal person would take a lot longer to rehab, and then try to come back and play the same game, which costs you significant time. The mental, physical, and emotional war, not struggle, war you go through is like nothing you and I will ever experience, man. And like I said, I got to see this man with tears in his eyes as these trainers down in Birmingham are twisting and turning and kneading his knee, trying to get it back and get the circulation back in it. And as he said, he had a couple of emergency surgeries. They were concerned there for a while about the blood flow stimulating through that part of his. And then to see the pictures, Rob, I'm never going to get that out of my mind, to see the pictures of the open hole in his foot and the button that's sticking out of the foot and how they attach the tendon to it. That alone would make me want to just say, it's time to find another career.
Yeah.
But these guys try to come back and continue, man, because they know this is their one shining moment to fulfill that dream of something they dreamed about as a kid.
Man,
it's
love. It's love of the game.
We keep talking about athletes get paid too much money, but I've always subscribed to anything you do in life. If somebody's willing to pay it, I'm willing to take it.
Yeah.
God bless him, and so good to see him smiling and doing well in his life again.
What a great spirit. What a great attitude. I'll come back. I'll give you, I touched on some Eagles numbers, Gunner, from what we've seen so far through the first two games. I want to dig in a little bit deeper on that. When we come back, then we'll get into our NFL stuff. We'll talk some Phillies who had a monster game last night, 5 home runs, and Wheeler was like that. If you want to draw it up for this is what you want it to be, it was last night from a Phillies perspective. So we'll get into that. I'll give you what their magic number is because they're whittling it down right now. So we'll talk about all those kind of things. Again, 2:00, Jeff McClain from the Philadelphia Inquirer. That is Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Jim Murray, Principal Financial Group. Knowing how to find that right person and who that right person is, it can be challenging, right? Well, listen, I am going to turn you on to the guy that you need here. I'll tell you from personal experience, it was a hard time for me finding the right person that I could trust to turn over my hard-earned bucks to. And Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, that's exactly who you need. Whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review, you might have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. Personally, I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim. It was a very smooth process. I couldn't be any happier about the growth with them. Give them a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him, Murray, MURRAY, .jim@principal.com. That's Murray.jim@principal.com.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Back. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis hanging out with you on this Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. 2:00, Jeff McClain. All right, let me give you some of these numbers, Derek, that I was looking at a little bit earlier through 2 games. First off, Jalen Carter. Let's start off on the positive here. Jalen Carter, through 2 games, has the 4th most pressures in the NFL at 11. Like he's in the category with the big boys, Watts and all those kind of guys. So, our eyeballs aren't lying to us. He has been as advertised so far. What an unbelievable start for his career so far. And I think he's just going to get better. I mean, think about it. He doesn't have even any of this figured out. Like, this is all just right now on pure ability that he's doing. Wait till he really starts to figure out the nuances, and the subtleties of the game that can really get him,
He has already jumped to the forefront as one of the leading candidates for Defensive Rookie of the Year just through a couple of games. If he continues on this trend, he is going to make national headlines for what he's accomplishing as a rookie. He has been everything that we thought he would be, and everything that we heard from all the experts, breaking down all these athletes, pro and con. And you're right. I think the key of what you said is he's still figuring this out. You can be coached up all you want, but every game's a different scenario. You're practicing different techniques. Every time you line up against a different style offensive lineman, you're working on something different. And he continues to have a great measure of success in doing it. The sacks are minuscule in terms of what he's doing to be a disruptive factor in the middle of that defensive line, defending against the run, getting pressure on quarterbacks, forcing quarterbacks off their spot, forcing quarterbacks to throw the ball quicker than they want to, making a quarterback know where he is at all times when he steps under center before he takes that snap. In just 2 games, he's already garnering that kind of respect around the league. And I guarantee you, offensive coordinators are watching, looking, and taking notes of what he's doing right now, man. He is a nonstop ball of energy.
Yeah, he is. And the young guy, with him, Jordan Davis, has been awesome. So is Fletcher Cox. So is Milton Williams. The defensive tackle position for the Eagles is an absolute strength. I mean, one of the better in terms of depth positions in the league for anybody. So, all right, there's that. All right, let's go offense first. Let's start offense, then we'll go into the defense. Points per game, they're 5th. They're 5th in points per game. They're scoring 29.5. They scored about 28 last year. We'll see where that ends up as we get a little bit further into it. It is only 2 games, but they're putting up points. Rushing game has been great, and that's aided by the fact that they ripped off 257, whatever it was, on Thursday night. They're 2nd in the league in running at 178 per game. Here's the issue. Passing game, 162.5, which is 29th.
Mm-hmm.
That's the troubling thing. Obviously, when you're running it as much as they did, it was 48-18 was the run pass ratio. You're just not going to have the attempts. There's not going to be as many shots down the field, blah, blah, blah. But we know from watching this, the passing game hasn't been able to find any kind of rhythm. It hasn't really, you never felt like on a drive, like, have you stepped away from one drive where you felt like passing game's really clicking? It just sort of feels like they're getting a sense for each other and they don't really know what it is right now.
2 games, Jalen has missed wide open targets. He's honed in too much on his primary target. The passing game has not been anywhere near as fluid. They've had a couple of big shots they did against Minnesota to Devontae Smith. But in terms of overall being that fluid passing game, they didn't involve Goddard at all in the first game. They got 6. I think he had 6 catches the second game, but it's still not spread out the way I thought it was. I thought as well as they ran the ball against Minnesota, which you're supposed to do, control that clock, keep that momentum in your favor. I still want to see him use DeAndre Swift more in the passing game on the quick hitch pass, the screen, middle screen, left screen, right screen, and the wheel routes as well. Again, it's just 2 games, and it's an offense that's still evolving. I just didn't think that it would be this far behind the 8 ball overall this early in the season.
Yeah, and they're I've pointed to this a lot. I think they've had a little bit of time. It was tough to make any adjustments between week 1 and week 2 because you only had 4 days. You're in such scramble mode just to get guys healthy and let's install something that's kind of basic or whatever. And I think the true test, Derek, is going to be this week. If the passing game continues to look the same after having 11 days to, revamp, tweak, whatever you want to say, then I think you could start having a lot more concern. Like, let me put it this way. My antenna's up right now. I'm not in any kind of panic mode. My antenna's up right now. But if it looks like this, okay, if we're sitting here Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, you and I are doing the show, and we say to ourselves, man, it kind of looked like the first 3 games. Then I think there's reason to start being worried because, you will have had time to fix it. This is the lighter portion, even though Tampa's pretty good defense. This is the lighter portion overall of the schedule. It can't look like this when you're playing, Buffalo, Kansas City, San Fran, Dallas, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you better start getting together now.
If this passing game is this ragged after the Tampa Bay game, after extended time off, Rob, the airwaves across Philadelphia are going to be screaming, and we're going to be breaking it. We're going to spend the whole week breaking down what's wrong with this passing game.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Jalen Hurts? And that's going to be a topic of discussion all week long next week. And then they have to turn around and come back and play the next game on a short week. So you go from extended time off to an even shorter week.
True.
This is the game you have to get it right in terms of what we expect this offense to look like. If not, it's going to be a long week next week. Even if they win another close game, even if they win and it's dominated by the run game more so than the passing game, if Jalen's missing targets on overthrows, missing guys in wide open space, then people are going to say, what the heck's wrong with Jalen? What's he going through right now?
Right. Yeah, I think right now, Derek, it's sort of split, right? Is Jalen not living up to the hype, to the contract, to what he did last year? Or is it Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni's game plan? What's happening? The other thing that's interesting with them right now, the 7 sacks allowed through 2 games.
Yeah.
With what many of us consider the best offensive line in football going into the season. Is Jalen holding the ball too long? Is the line just not playing up to snuff so far? What's the reasoning behind that? That's not something I thought we'd be sitting here talking about, quite frankly.
From my perspective, Rob, it's been a case of him holding. If you really watch it closely, there's no rhythm in the passing game. He's double pumped. He's been holding the ball too long. It's like he's unsure of what he's seeing down the field. And I'm sure that's directly related to these phantom coverages that both Belichick and Brian Flores threw against him. You think you're seeing one thing and all of a sudden the ball is snapped and they drop into something else. But see, in the past, he's been able to overcome that. Last year, it was basically just fluid. But now, all of a sudden, he's hesitating. And I think that's directly why this passing attack has been so jagged up to this point. Is it more Jalen or more of the schemes that they're seeing this year compared to last year? Yeah. Is it Jalen or is it better personnel that they're seeing this year compared to last year? They went from shredding Ed Donatell's zone defense last year, Minnesota, to now Brian Flores, direct disciple of Bill Belichick. You saw them both in the span of 4 days. That's a lot to overcome in 4 days. Now you get to face Todd Bowles defense. What the heck is he going to throw at you? So it's going to start with Jalen. Everybody's going to be watching Jalen that much closer. Is he pumping the ball? Is he hesitating to release the ball? Why? Is it because of the scheme or is it because of something else that hasn't been identified yet?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of questions. All right. So total yards, I don't get as wrapped up in as maybe some people do. They're 11th in total yards, whatever. I worry about points and what the offense and the passing game and the running game looks like. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Defensively, 24 points per game. That's 16th. They're right around the middle of the pack in terms of points allowed. They were higher than that last year. And this is where it has gotten interesting. They flipped the script here. They're first against the run. They're the best team against the run. And they're second to last against the pass. Now, a lot of this is circumstance. Minnesota threw a ton, as you would expect, because A, they were down, and B, the Eagles were down bodies. So you have to take this stuff into account when you're looking at stats sometimes. That is critical to look at. But let's face it, Derek, they're going to be susceptible in the air. When you're without Avonte Maddox and, at least you were without Bradbury last game, no Nakobe Dean, this stuff catches up to you eventually. And, I think they are a team. I think Tampa's going to look to attack them in the air. I think you're going to see a lot of Evans, Godwin targets, as you would anyway with their game plan.
Evans may have a $180 in this game out of necessity because Tampa Bay can't run the football. If he gets a $180 through the air, that's not good.
Yeah.
That means Baker has time to stand back there and throw the football, and they're not getting enough pressure on him initially. And number two, Evans is just a nightmare matchup for anybody he comes up against. I don't care who you are, because of his size is 6'5", and he's a big body, and he's physical. He's not the most fast. He's not the fastest receiver out there, but he's fast enough, and he's so crafty and so smart in running his routes. And we keep overlooking Chris Godwin. Godwin is that speedster on the other side. Even when they get Bradbury back, they're going to have problems because of the inconsistency with the safety play and because they still can't defend the middle of the field. I think that's going to be a problem all season long for this team. And they haven't even seen Mahomes, Josh Allen, all these guys that they're going to see. And if I'm an offensive coordinator, and, let's face it, Rob, these OCs, these DCs, they have buddies across the league. They've coached with a lot of these guys at the college ranks and pro level all across the league. Word gets out. Here's how you attack this Eagles defense. And until the Eagles figure a way out to stop it, or if they can't figure out a way to stop it, it's going to be a problem all season long.
I think you hit the nail. I really think that you just nailed it. I think the biggest thing is we saw teams try to take some things away last year, but they didn't have as much time, I think, to dig in on it. And I think teams, let's face it wasn't just the Patriots who were game planning for the Eagles. Every team who was playing them to some degree had an idea what they wanted to do when they played them. Now, they're also piggybacking off of the success that New England had and, some of the things that Minnesota maybe did in the pass game against them, defensively. And I don't think the Eagles have countered well. And I don't know. It's 2 games, and we're going to see about this game. But if it keeps looking like this, it won't be a good reflection of Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni.
No. And Rob, we're in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Where everything is magnified 10 times compared to a lot of cities across the NFL. And Sirianni is going to have to stand at that podium and answer questions he doesn't want to answer. We've already seen him get testy coming out of that last game against the Vikings. This is where we're going to find out the true mettle of a Nick Sirianni, because everything was Camelot last year. Even when they lost games, it was Camelot last year. Everything was happy, But now, if this thing continues to be stagnant, and Sean Desai is going to be put under a microscope.
Yep.
Luckily for Matt Patricia, he doesn't have to step to the microphone. This is all on Sean Desai, a young up-and-coming defensive coordinator who doesn't have the personnel that they had a year ago. He's in a situation where he has to grow his defense. As you grow your defense, there will be mistakes that will continue to be made. And that's not what you want at this point, especially if they start losing games, right? If they start losing games like 2 in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, look, Chris defense has had all offseason to study how to take away our offensive weapons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, now it's up to our new OC and our quarterback coach to teach Jalen how to read quickly, Jalen's decision-making, and respond in depth. Exactly right. I think, the other piece of this thing is they're so front end heavy here. Like the defensive line, we talked about how good Carter and Davis and Fletcher Cox. And I think Hassan Reddick is still figuring it out with the thumb. We already saw Josh Sweat get the strip sack. I think Brandon Graham will be fine. You're so good there. And then, man, here come the question marks. Linebacker, especially with Dean out. Secondary, now I think you'll get Bradbury back. I'm assuming, which will help. But you're still then without Maddox and Zach McPherson. So you're down 2 guys at that nickel corner spot. And you were already questionable with your safeties. And the other thing is, I don't know. I mean, we'll see with these guys with the ribs if they're going to be ready to go. I would think they are, but I don't know for sure. I mean, what is it, 15 days? They'll have 15 days, right, in between the
11.
and then
I thought it was 11. No.
I'm saying for the guys who only played week 1, it'll be 15 days, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's 15 days. Yeah, you're right. See, we don't even know the extent of some of these rib injuries. We know Fletcher was able to tape it up and pad it and come out and play. But we don't know the extent of Blankenship's rib injury.
Right.
The one thing about the Eagles, they're very hush-hush about injured players until they don't have to be anymore. Until one of the media people go behind closed doors and get one of their sources to reveal something to them. Then that's the only way they come out and tell you the absolute truth. Mm-hmm. But until then, we're going to sit here and speculate. And obviously we won't know until the injury report comes out on Sunday. If Blankenship still has in practice or is limited in practice on Sunday, that's not good for Monday night.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. I would agree with that. All right, let's come back again. Jeff McLean at 2:00. Let's do a little combo platter here, Derek. We got a lot of NFL stuff that we'll throw your way. We'll get some Phillies in there as well, but give you a couple injury updates. Man, last night there were some biggies, and we'll revisit a couple of those. We'll tell you what's going on around the NFL, a bunch of other stuff that we'll get into as well. One of the things, and I love this, you introduced this during our show meeting, but there's 9 2-0 teams and 9 0-2 teams.
Yep.
We're going to tell you which team that's 2-0 will lose, which team that's 0-2 will get in the win column. Not an easy exercise.
No, it's not.
This took me longer than I thought it was going to after you brought it up. But anyway, we'll dig into that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Pro Action Restoration is the place that you reach out to if you have a home, you have a business, maybe a property that you own, and you go through the pain, the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, or mold damage to your property. You're not really sure who to turn to. Well, Pro Action Restoration is that place, and they're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I went through something very similar on a Saturday. I didn't know who to turn to, who to call, who to ask. I reached out to them. They got right out to my parents' place. They cleaned up what was basically a flood in their basement. They diagnosed the problem. They fixed it. They cleaned everything up. The price was right. The crew was great. It was a really a relief of an experience for sure. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company also. So if it's water, fire, smoke, say mold remediation, or something you're not really sure about, you can reach out to them. They can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
All right, we're back. Thanks for hanging. Appreciate it. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Gunner, we normally do our NFL segment at 2 o'clock, but we'll have Jeff McClain coming up at 2. So let's do a little NFL activity. So we mentioned and talked about it quite a bit in the early going here, the injury to Nick Chubb. It was nasty. It was awful. If you haven't seen it, it really, I would just advise you don't need to seek this one out. It was pretty ugly. Yeah, you want to go for it, but it's not pleasant. But anyway, he's done for the season. Beyond that, last night, Derek, in the other game, with the Panthers and New Orleans. Initially, it looked like an ankle injury, but Shaq Thompson, broken fibula, he's done for the year.
Yes.
Frank Wright just announced. That's a huge blow to that defense there.
Yeah, man, you hate to see it, man. Yeah, but Rob, every year I talk about how these injuries are piling up at a devastating rate. You look around the league, you got David Montgomery with a thigh. He was carted off the field. He's day to day.
Yep.
You got offensive tackle Taylor Decker. He missed the last game, ankle. We don't know he's coming. Halapuli Vaitai went down with a knee injury. Those guys on the Detroit offensive line are going to miss significant time with these ankle and knee injuries. You got James Houston, who has a fibula injury, defensive end.
Yep.
I mean, these things are piling up at a rapid rate, and I'm talking about not just strained tendons and hamstring. I'm talking about devastating stuff, man. It's like, where does this end? And the thing is, we were talking last week about the cry from the NFLPA and David Bakhtiari about more grass fields. Guess what? Nick Chubb got hurt on a grass field.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think, would I prefer everybody to be on grass? Sure. But it's football, and you have giant men crashing into each other. There are going to be injuries. If you played it on pillows, if you played this on a mattress, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen anyway. There's just too many big bodies moving at too fast a rate to avoid this. It's life. It's the attrition sport. It's the ultimate attrition sport. So 2 biggies last night. That weren't the only ones. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick left the game with a chest injury.
Yes. And he was the one. He was the one who hit Chubb.
He hit Chubb. Yeah. Later in the game, he dove for somebody. You could see he's kind of like, grasping for air. He went to a hospital. That didn't look good. I mean, look, the Bengals aren't sure if Burrow's going to play this week with that calf.
No.
That doesn't look good either. Buda Baker's on the IR with a hamstring.
Yes. It's just, I mean, Cooper Kupp's still not off IR. I mean, he can't come off IR. And, he's talking about nerve damage, a hamstring with nerve damage.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard of that one before.
No.
I mean, these dudes are so big, so fast, and it's like 100-mile-an-hour collisions at every snap.
Right.
The field has not gotten any bigger, but the bodies have. When you're looking at a guy like a Jordan Davis at 6'5", 350 pounds, 340 pounds, running a 4.6 40, and you're colliding head-on with another guy who can run 4.7 and 4.8, dude, major collisions are bound to happen, man. And you just hope you're upright and breathing like the Eagles were last year with most of your components. But man, every week somebody's losing somebody significantly, man.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's not a great sign. I don't know if you saw this last night. Deshaun Watson made contact he basically shoved an official. But
did he get called for it?
No, there wasn't even a flag.
How's that possible?
I don't know. I mean, that's usually something they're on pretty high alert if there's any kind of contact, but I don't think he's going to even get a fine or get suspended for it.
Go back to last season, and Green Bay had a young linebacker out of Georgia, Quay Walker, I believe his name is, and he, after a play, he actually pushed the referee out of the way, got fined and suspended a game.
Right.
Are you telling me Deshaun Watson, and it was visible on camera? I guarantee you the league is going to take a look at this, and there's going to be some kind of fine. Maybe even he might get a game suspension for this.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. He had the face mask, if you remember. He pulled the defender down a little bit.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. And then there was the sort of the pushing, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, during a scrum that broke out. I would say it was more of a shove, whatever. We'll see. We'll see what could happen here. It's going to be interesting, from his perspective. He's a guy who should be laying low, considering the history here. But
hasn't he had enough publicity for one lifetime?
I guess. Okay, so according to the NFL, the contact with the official did not rise to the level of a foul.
What?
So here's the rule. Under no circumstance is a player allowed to shove, push, or strike an official in an offensive, disrespectful, or unsportsmanlike manner. Players shall be disqualified from the game, and any such action should be reported to the commissioner, who can blah, 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 blah. So in the judgment of the officials, the contact did not rise to the level of a foul, the NFL explained today. So this is today, not last night. The officials are called upon to maintain an order on the field, and sometimes while performing their duties, there is inadvertent contact between players and officials. I'll tell you what, Deshaun's a very lucky man.
Are you kidding me? That's how they justify what happened?
Yep.
My understanding is under no circumstance are you allowed to put your hands on an official. Unless an official is like, tumbling into you some way, shape, or form. He trips over somebody, you're trying to protect your lower extremities, and you push him away from you, something like that.
Yeah.
But you put your hands on an official, normally that's automatic flag and fine.
Yep.
But the league came out and said that.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's what they said. Yeah, I was surprised by that as well, Derek. I really was. Speaking of quarterbacks, so it has not been a good start for the Bears or Justin Fields so far. He's been sacked 10 times. So that would be a pace for 85 sacks, which is an NFL record.
85?
Yeah.
85, I quit. You hit me 85 times. That's only the sacks. 80. How many hits does he take?
Well, that's the thing. Like, is he still going to be standing through 17 games if he's been sacked this many times? But the problem is, yes, the line hasn't been good. Derek, he's holding the ball for 4+ seconds on a lot of these.
Can't do that in today's game. Can't do it,
man. And he doesn't look like he's progressing, from last year, and they've just been a train wreck as a team. So things not looking good in Chi-Town right now.
So their commitment to fix the offensive line has not worked up to this point.
Right.
And the defense, the money they spend on defense has not worked up to this point as well. You're right. Chicago is a hot mess. And I want to know, is it just the kid not evolving, or is it the lack of coaching? Is it improper coaching in terms of how to see what you need to see, how to get rid of the ball, how that mechanism in your head, 1, 2, 3, throw, has not kicked in yet. Who's at fault here? It's easy to point fingers, but I believe this is a multiple finger pointing situation from the player to the coaches in terms of this player not being confident in terms of what he needs to see from a passer, to the coaches not properly spending enough off-season time with him from the OTAs through training camp to get him to be that better passer. All we heard off-season was he's going to be better. I'm going to take it upon myself to be better. You got him a receiver.
Yeah, DJ Moore.
You got a decent running back. The offensive line, you claim you fixed it, and it's not getting better. Where's the problem?
Not good. Not good, for sure. You know what's good? It's good to be Patrick Mahomes, and you're going to get, Derek, a guaranteed $210.6 million over the next 3 years. Sign me up. Yep, that's pretty good.
I'm in.
Yep.
Give me that kind of money.
So they restructured him, and that's the result of the restructuring. That's what he will get over from this year to 2026. He will get that.
Is there a quarterback in the league that should be paid more than Patrick Mahomes?
No.
27 years old, 2 Super Bowl trophies, 3 Super Bowl appearances, 2 league MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs.
Mm-hmm.
How many quarterbacks can say that?
None. Nobody right now. I mean, I think he will go down. If he stays healthy, he's going to go down in any conversation that we have, possibly in terms of the greatest, if not the greatest, top 3, top 4 that have ever lived.
There's no question. If he stays healthy, I agree with you 100%. And he's doing it in such an unorthodox manner, Rob. He throws blind passes. He throws no-look passes. He throws sidearm.
Mm-hmm.
He flips it over the top. He does everything that you're not used to a quarterback doing.
No, everything you would tell a young kid don't do.
He does it, and he does it with success. And he's a winner.
Yes.
He's a winner. He's a comeback artist. He's a magician. He fills seats. He puts people in seats. And the fact that Kansas City, kudos to Kansas City's front office for identifying his wealth, his worth, and putting him back at the top of the pedestal in terms of athletes. All right, this is the money bracket quarterbacks are in now. And we realize there will be no arguments. There will be no tension between us and Patrick Mahomes. We are here to show you how much we appreciate you. And the fact now this is still under his original contract because his contract doesn't end until 2031.
Right.
And they've already said we will address this again in 26.
Mm-hmm.
Why in 26? Because that new contract TV money will be well in place.
Yeah.
And these young kids coming up who are in the league now, the Bryce Youngs, the CJ Strouds, the Anthony Richardsons, And, of course, the existing young quarterbacks who are making their money, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, are all, and Deshaun Watson, all going to be looking for more money.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Mahomes, if he wins another Super Bowl, if he gets them to another couple of Super Bowls, is going to be put right back where he should be at the top of that pedestal.
Yeah, I listen. That's where it's going. We know that much. Hey, 2 former Eagle news stories. The first one stinks, and this goes into the injury category. You just feel bad. CJ Gardner-Johnson's season over with a torn pec in Detroit. Remember, he had the scare in camp initially, and you thought, ooh, he's never going to play a snap for the Lions. Well, it turns out played 2 games for the Lions, and he's done. And he was only on a 1-year deal, too.
Yeah. And a low 1-year deal at that.
Right.
Like a $5 million deal.
Yeah. So that's a big one because that defense still isn't fixed, by the way. If anybody watched them last week against Seattle, they're not – they have some studs, but they don't have enough studs on that defense. Losing him's a big deal. So that's a tough blow for them there. The other one, this is interesting. Trey Sermon has caught on with the Colts. That makes sense there.
That's one bit.
Yeah.
He was cut, injury cut here with the Eagles now. Yeah. And you know what? Considering the state of Jonathan Taylor, he could not get run here. He can go there and get run. He knows.
Steichen knows him too. Steichen knows
offense. Yep. And they need a running back. And once he gets up to speed, maybe not this week, I guarantee you, if he's healthy, he's going to be in there next week. He's going to have to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's got a chance there to make a difference and catch on. That's all you're really asking, at that point, really.
Yeah, they've got a good offensive line, and they need somebody to take some of that pressure off Anthony Richardson running the football because they can't afford having Richardson taking the kind of shots he took this past Sunday.
No, I'll tell you, just back to the Browns for a minute. Do you see them maybe being players here for Jonathan Taylor, or do you think they ride in-house with the kid Ford who looked so good last night? Do you think they go to the outside? Because there's 2 guys. I'll give you Jonathan Taylor, and the Rams are openly saying we're trading Cam Akers. Like there's not even a question at this point.
I would go back to Kareem Hunt, to be honest with you. And I still can't understand why he's sitting out there. That just blows me away that he is a talented young back. I would go back to him. Now, you may have to pay a little bit more to get him back, but you know what? I think Jerome Ford is a nice step-up running back. But if you bring Kareem Hunt, Kareem would be that feature back eventually, and Jerome would be that backup, that change of pace. Mm-hmm. That's still a great 1-2 combination for Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. But I got to imagine, I don't know. I mean, like, I if I'm Cleveland, I think I have enough. They got to get Watson straightened out, but I think I have enough pieces to do some real damage. I would look long and hard at making a move at running back. I think it would be the smart move. Fournette's still out there. There's something they can do to upgrade that position. That much is for sure. You brought this up too, Derek, in our pre-show meeting, and I think it's interesting in light of what's happening here. The NFLPA, that filing that they put out there with running backs in faking injuries, really comes into play when you're talking about some of the things that these guys are going through right now.
Well, the league office filed a grievance against the NFLPA.
Yeah.
Claiming that the NFLPA is telling running backs basically to fake injuries.
Yep.
And how ironic it is this story comes to light. Now, they filed this grievance at September 11th, but the story doesn't come to light until after Nick Chubb gets hurt last night. And now, anytime a running, it's already bad enough they're not getting paid their worth. Now, anytime they go down, media are going to be looking at this as, are they faking it?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Rob? How many times do we see in a game an offensive or defensive lineman or a linebacker or a running back from any given team walk up to a line of scrimmage and all of a sudden sit down? When momentum's going against them at a crucial point in the game, they sit down and pat their helmet like they're injured.
We saw it with Chip Kelly all the time. You remember?
How do we see that?
Yeah.
So now you're going to put running backs under the spotlight, one of the most physical positions on a football field. You're going to put them under the spotlight even more so now because of this. Mm-hmm. It's like the dam just continues to open against running backs in the National Football League. I've never seen anything like this. This was a position that was put on a high pedestal for years. When you think about some of the greats who ran, Walter Payton, John Riggins, Earl Campbell, guys like that. And now all of a sudden, they're the afterthought of the league. And Leonard Weaver put it so eloquently. They've got to know when to step up and in the hole, the blitz, catch the ball, run the ball. They do so many different facets of the game. And now all of a sudden they're considered like the bastard child of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And it just blows me away. And now the league is coming out saying they're faking. That's fraud. That's fraud because players do it all the time. You see an offense marching down the field, crucial point. All of a sudden you see a player look around, sit down on the field, pat his helmet. Officials call a injury timeout.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I hear you. I know. Yeah, but it's like, to me, some of this stuff is so hard to police. Kind of like the NBA is going to do this thing where they don't want all the stars sitting out in certain games and all that kind of stuff. Good luck. Like, what if a guy's like, hey, I can't go, I have a sore hamstring. Like, ultimately, how does the league prove that he's not telling the truth?
Exactly.
Or my back's stiff. Like, that's not going to show up maybe on an MRI. I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening.
And you think team trainers and team doctors aren't going to second and third the notion of a player that's injured in the NBA?
Totally.
Who pays their salaries? I guarantee you, it's mandated from the top. If we need a player to sit out a game, you better be on board with what we're talking about. They want to be employed.
You're right about that. All right, let's dip into this, Derek. The 2-0 versus 0-2.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let me set the stage here, and let's start with the positives here. Let's start with the 2-0 teams.
All right.
Okay? All right, let's work AFC to NFC. Dolphins 2-0, Ravens 2-0. That's it, by the way, in the AFC.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
Go to the NFC. There's 3 teams in the East. The Eagles 2-0, Cowboys 2-0, Commanders 2-0. Go to the South. Falcons 2-0, Saints 2-0, Tampa Bay 2-0. Who would have thought the NFC South would have 3 2-0 teams?
Unbelievable.
Only one team in the West, and it's the 49ers, okay? So there's all of your teams. Here's the 0-2 teams. Again, who would have thought? Cincinnati Bengals, New England Patriots, Houston Texans, LA Chargers, Denver Broncos. Keep moving. Vikings 0-2, Bears 0-2, Panthers 0-2, Cardinals 0-2. So they're your 2-0s and 0-2s. Now the exercise is which 2-0 team will lose first, and who will it be? Which 0-2 team will win first? All right, you want to take either category? I'll take the other one. Wherever you want to go.
I'll take the 2-0s.
All right,
and I'll let you, and then you can take the 0-2s first.
Okay.
I think Washington will be the first team to drop to 2-1. They're at home against Buffalo this week. If the if the Buffalo team that played this past Sunday shows up in Washington, the Washington's unblemished season comes to an end, comes to a crashing halt. I know Washington is playing well, good defensive personnel. This Sam Howell seems to be more athletic and better than what we thought he was. Mm-hmm. I don't see them beating Buffalo at home, man. I think Buffalo has too much on both sides of the football.
Great choice, especially Buffalo being 1-1. Buffalo's not going to let up. There's going to be no let up. Allen, to his credit, said he was going to fix things, and he fixed them between week 1 and week 2. He played smart football.
Yes.
He wasn't reckless. He wasn't trying to be hero guy. He wasn't perfect, but he was better than he was week 1.
Absolutely.
So I like that one. I think Washington got a little fortunate week 1 against they were playing a garbage Cardinals team. If they put that kind of effort out there, they're going to lose. If I was going to choose, I'd choose that one. I'll give you the second choice after that. I'll go with the Chargers. I don't love this, Derek.
Yep.
But I looked at the other teams. I'm talking the Chargers are going to win. I'm going to take the 0-2 side of this thing. I think the Chargers are going to win their first game of the season at Minnesota. I think Minnesota stinks.
I do too.
And I don't see LA. I think LA, while they're not great, is not an 0-3 team. I don't think they're that bad.
Okay.
So I think they go on the road and get themselves a win. I think they're going to tighten some things up a little bit. I look for the Chargers to win and get off the schneid here, and they'll have their first victory of the season.
Okay. All right. I agree with you, but I did put one team ahead of the Chargers.
All right.
And that team was New England. I think New England can beat the Jets with Zach Wilson quarterbacking that team.
Oh,
I think New England will beat.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
Belichick will put him in handcuffs He'll be in a straitjacket. He won't know what's going on.
No. That game might be a 10-6 game, Rob. Yeah. I don't see a lot of scoring in that game, but I think Belichick's defensive scheme versus that stout Jets defense, it comes down to quarterback play.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Look, I'm going to sound a little, I guess, homerish here, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah.
Of the 2-0 teams that could lose first, Tampa.
Yep.
You know, Tampa's done a great job so far. I commend them. I give them a lot of credit, but can Baker Mayfield hold up? You know, Todd Bowles has been a great coordinator. He hasn't been a great head coach. The Eagles know they haven't played particularly well. They are 5.5-point favorites on the road. I think Tampa could go down, and you know that'd be their first loss of the season.
I agree 100%. They're number 3 on my team, my 2-0 teams that'll fall. My number 2 team on the list of 2-0s that could fall, I was torn because I believe Green Bay is going to beat New Orleans in Green Bay. After watching New Orleans play,
I agree with you.
I think Green Bay is going to beat New Orleans because Green Bay shot itself in the foot. They should have won in Atlanta. If it wasn't for that botch snap and 4th and inches, I believe they would have beat Atlanta down to Atlanta this past Sunday. But I put one team ahead of them. I think Atlanta's losing in Detroit, to be honest.
I like that. I gave a good amount of time to both games last night. And man, last night was a remote challenge. Going from Phillies to both Monday night games was like, but anyway, I wasn't overly impressed with Derek Carr at all.
Heck no, I'm shocked.
He had the benefit. Michael Thomas had a great catch along the sideline. It was like a butt catch. Did you see that? His butt landed in bounds. A couple other plays, but a lot of their offense was like pounding Taysom Hill. I don't know. And I'm not overly impressed with New Orleans, at least early on in this thing.
I agree with you 100%. And Tampa Bay was my number 3 because they play Monday night instead of on Sunday.
Yeah.
So Tampa Bay will be the 3rd 2-0 team to fall. I do believe it's going to be a struggle for the Eagles, but I just think the Eagles have too much talent, especially the Eagles offense versus Tampa Bay's defense compared to Tampa Bay's offense versus the Eagles defense. I think the difference is the Eagles offense in this game.
All right. Let's sneak in a little Phillies here, Derek, because heck of a game last night. You know, Wheeler gives up an early one and then really settles in. He ends up going 6, 1 run allowed, pitched very well in the game for sure. And that's good because he didn't pitch good last time out. But the real story was the offense. They had 5 home runs last night.
Yes.
Harper, Rojas, Realmuto, Castellanos, and Schwarber hit one that literally there it goes. It just went past my window. It was 483 feet. It was
wait. What just went past your window?
The baseball that he hit last night.
Oh, okay. All right.
He hit a 483-foot moon shot like that went over the Chop House in Atlanta. It was majestic. That thing that he hit.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And that's only the 2nd longest home run ever hit in that stadium. Ronald Acuna hit one 493. 493. Now, Ronald Acuna is nowhere big as Kyle Schwarber.
No.
The power that kid generates is unbelievable. But let me tell you something, Rob. When Schwarber hit that home run, I sat there like this.
Did you see Ryan Howard's reaction at the game? He was at the game with his daughter. He was just like,
Ryan Howard's like, man, I wish I could hit like that.
Yeah, I miss it. Yeah, I miss those days. It was awesome. It was awesome. So again, if you're going to draw it up, power, good starting pitching, bullpen does their job. That's exactly what they need to have here in the postseason. A couple other things. I want to give props to Johan Rojas. He's been awesome.
Yes, he has.
You know, he's hitting 300. The biggest concern was, could he hit? He really, he's an insane fielder. The ground that he covers is unreal. He's got a 344 on base, 442 slugging percentage this year. They're going to have to figure out somehow, some way how to play him every day next year. He is an everyday type player. He's that good.
There's no question about it. He has been a gem, a hidden gem to find. And, you know, when you consider how top loaded they are salary wise, they've got him at a bargain basement price right now. Will again next year. But you're right. I think he's an everyday player. You got to get him in the lineup. The way he's stroking the ball, you know, has been for much of the season. You brought up a great stat in our meeting about how since the All-Star break, the Phillies are second in the majors in terms of home runs.
Yeah, they have Derek just since August 1st, they have 90, which is the most in baseball. And since the All-Star break, they're second behind the Braves.
Jeez.
They have pounded the ball in terms of the long ball. You know.
Now if we could just find 3 more Zach Wheelers.
Well, all right. So interesting tonight. Christopher Sanchez is going to start, and then they're calling it a piggyback off of Lorenzen. Off of Sanchez is going to be Lorenzen. So this is their way of transitioning Lorenzen into the bullpen, which he's pitched in the bullpen a good amount in his career.
Do you really want to see Lorenzen tonight against this Braves lineup?
But you have to.
I know.
You got to figure something out, Derek, because I think this is how he's going to be used in the playoffs. And let's face it, I'm not saying everybody's the Braves, but you're going to be getting such a high caliber of baseball team.
I know.
You know, and I saw what Barbara Carroll said. You know, I'm not celebrating the Phillies like they won a World Series, and I get the Braves are playing out the string. I get it. But here's the danger. This is the only thing I would say about that. The danger. Where are these things move so fast? The danger of Atlanta having things locked up so early is do they take their pedal off the metal here?
Yeah.
And then they can't crank it back up once the playoffs start. That's what I would be worried about a little bit if I'm an Atlanta fan.
I agree. And I understand resting your players, which they've done since they've clinched. Rested players. I get it. And they still control home field advantage in the National League. But the Dodgers are creeping closer. And, you know, sometimes when you go in these tailspins, we see it in baseball all the time, they're not easy to come out of.
Yeah.
So the Braves have to be real careful about how they approach this thing because the Dodgers are still playing like they're still trying to get that home field advantage. Should it come down to the Dodgers and Braves in the NLCS.
Right. Right. And that's something that's you know, critical here. You know,
the Braves need to get back to that sharp edge, which they were for much of this season. If not, because you know what, Rob? Somehow bad habits have a way of festering at the wrong time.
No, you're right about that. All right. You know what's a good habit? Having Jeff McLean on the show.
Yes,
so when
indeed.
we come back, yes, we will talk to Jeff about all things birds through 2 weeks and preview what's coming up on Monday night in Tampa. Quick timeout, come back. Jeff McLean joins us. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I'm going to tell you about Flynn Tree Services. Flynn Tree Services is an insured Pennsylvania tree services company and an experienced tree service company that services southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. You can go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com. Right back.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, we're back. Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Appreciate you hanging with us on this Tuesday. All right, let's bring up our next guest. You can follow him on Twitter or X at Jeff_McClain. Of course, he is the Eagles reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer and does an excellent podcast called Uncovering the Birds. Jeff, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hey, good, bud. We're doing well. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to start with the injuries here, Jeff. I sound like Andy Reid, but I do. They are, especially to spots where they were already a little bit thin. Avonte Maddox, Nakobe Dean, etc. I know they worked out William Jackson III here as a corner. What do you see them doing here, Jeff? Is this just hopefully guys can step up, or do you see Howie maybe making a bigger move rather than just a guy on the street, a trade? How do you see them addressing that?
Yeah, well, we know Howie. He's never afraid to make a move when he needs to. So I would never rule that out as it relates to the slot cornerback position. Now, they have Mario Goodrich as the kind of guy behind him, and he stepped in for Avonte when he went down on Thursday against the Vikings. But they also have this James Bradbury option. He practiced inside a little bit. I wouldn't say a lot during training camp. And it was kind of in more like I felt like that quasi linebacker role that the slot sometimes can play in certain packages. But certainly he can play inside and has those cornerback type skills. But that would force Josh Jobe then to be the starter on the outside. Is that what you want? Does that hurt you in that regard? I thought Jobe was up and down. He had some good moments and he had some bad moments. To be expected, first time making a start in the NFL. But yeah, I wouldn't rule them out making bringing someone else in maybe at that spot. Goodrich struggled, but that was a tough spot for him to have to jump in there. And, safety is another one with Reed Blankenship out. I think, they're not expecting him to be out for a long period. Avonte obviously is done for could be the entire season. Reed, they should get it back at some point. So I don't think they're going to quite make a move at safety yet.
Hey, Jeff, give me your perspective on what we have seen from the inconsistency so far with Jalen in the passing game. First game, you can say, okay, they didn't play in the preseason, a little rust, but it carried over 4 days later in week number 2. Is there a cause for concern, or should we pump the brakes until further notice?
Yeah, I would pump it a little bit just because it's 2 games, and Jalen has at this point, last year, a large sample of him being successful. That being said, it is what it is. The first 2 weeks he was not great. Was he bad? No. Mm-hmm. He had a really bad interception on Thursday night, and he had a really bad fumble in that first game. But he still completed a high number of passes, and this was, again, actually in both games, and was able to throw the ball downfield. They had some really big throws to Devontae Smith. I do think that maybe he's struggling to see the field a little bit. Now, is that on the play calling and having a new play caller and Brian Johnson? Is that what defenses are doing now they're throwing a lot of different stuff at him, as Jason Kelsey said. We've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff that we haven't seen on film, stuff that the teams don't normally do. Is it partly that, or is it Jalen just kind of struggling here with all these other variables? And it's probably a combination of all three. I thought realistically there was a chance that he was going to have a little bit of a regression. And that is bound to happen when teams are they spend all off season looking at this offense, trying to find ways to take away that +1 factor, I think, in the run game. Because if you take that away, then that closes things up down the field. And while I think Jalen has got much better as a passer, is he still at that level where you can just kind of let him rip it whenever he wants to rip it? No, he's only 25 years old. So I caution about getting too overly concerned about what we've seen in the first 2 games. That being said, it is what it is, and you have to acknowledge it.
Jeff, this may fall under that same category of all the above, but 7 sacks allowed. Is that, would it be the same thing that applies to Jalen's maybe up and down start, or is the line, at least in pass blocking, certainly not run blocking, they went crazy last week, but not playing at the level they maybe need to play at?
I thought the first game was more on the offensive line in terms of the pressure. I thought the second game was more on Jalen in terms of the pressure. So it's both. That being said, it's important to note, and I got to drill this into my head all the time when I'm watching a football game, not only live, but then watching on film. There's 11 different responsibilities out there. So very rarely is it all on one person. And Nick even brought that up himself when asked about the sacks. He's like, well, one of them was because the receiver was running across or didn't run the right route, or didn't run the route the way we wanted him to run the route. He was the read. Jalen couldn't throw it there. Then all of a sudden all hell broke loose, and he had to take the sack. So it's important to understand, I guess, on each and every play what all the responsibilities are. That being said, typically when you see something firsthand and you watch it, more often than not, you're pretty right on things. And watching it again, it did seem like I felt like that there were times where Jalen was just holding on to it long, and he just needed to get, certain clock in your head, then get outside, and then if you have nothing, then throw the ball away. And I thought maybe he tried to force things a little too much in that regard. So to answer your question, probably a combination again of several factors.
Is there any doubt in your mind that DeAndre Swift is now the lead / feature back in this offense?
I thought he was the lead back coming out of training camp. He was. Okay. I thought he was really the most talented guy. It's not overwhelming. Right. Where he's going to be the workhorse and the only guy you're going to hand the ball off to. That's never really been his thing. Can he do it? He wants to do it. He did it in this game. 28 carries. He had 33 carries in one game in his NFL career. Aside from that, before the 28 rushes the other night, it was only 16. So the Lions didn't think that he was this type of running back, and I don't think that's what we're going to see here. And in fact, we didn't see that much. We didn't see Miles Sanders even carry that much, at least in terms of his average. But I do question the Eagles a little bit on this, and I know it's a small sample of 2 games. I didn't understand why Kenny was the starter in the first game and got 18 touches to Swift's 2. Now, there's a lot of stuff that could factor into that as well. On zone reads, do you hand the ball off or not? So, and I think that got away from the Eagles in that regard, and they corrected it. But did they correct it because Kenny got hurt and he couldn't play, and then they had no other choice? Or did they say, you know what, Swifty's better? And to me, I think Swifty's just more elusive. He's more of a he's got more explosion than Kenny. I like Kenny. He probably hits the hole maybe a little quicker. He's more north to south guy, which I kind of didn't think he was coming out of college. And I think there's no way they're going to bury him. He deserves to be a factor on this offense and be involved in it. But to me, I just think Swifty should get the most snaps.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too, Jeff. And it seemed like it was that way in camp also, going in. And what I thought Swift did a great job too, just hitting it right where it was, up the middle. He didn't try to get too cute, didn't try to bust it outside in space. He ran really, really hard. I don't think it's ideal for him to maybe have that many carries, but man, I thought it was really encouraging what you saw out of him.
And he got yards after contact. It wasn't like he was falling forward, and for guy, he's not huge, but he's got that low center of gravity, and he's pretty thick, So So I think he can do that. But do you want to do that with him when you're a team that's obviously got high aspirations, right? Do you want preserve him a little bit as we go along here? I don't think that was the factor that was factoring in their thinking in the first game. I think it just kind of got out of their hands. But they were clearly favoring Kenny, and I defer to them. They know way more than I do. They're with these guys all the time. But there are times when they kind of can't see the forest from the trees on certain guys. It's happened before. We know it's happened before. I can name a bunch of instances right off the bat. Remember, they're playing Alshon Jeffrey. Yep. They kept playing Alshon. What are you playing Alshon? He's done. So it can happen with these teams before, or it takes them too long to get out of it because they're just so tied to these guys, or for whatever the reason. So let's see how this plays out.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Jeff, staying with the running backs, this Rashad Penny situation is a little bit perplexing. They deactivate him for the first game, and the only reason he gets in the last game is because Swift taps out because he needs a breather. I thought he would be more, and there's still a lot of games to be played, but I thought he would be more of a prominent role in this offense. And are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I wasn't surprised he wasn't active because they're not going to carry 4 running backs on game day, and Boston Scott returns kicks. And it wasn't like they gave this guy a lot of money. I mean, his contract was hardly guaranteed. Now you look at his production in his career, like, God, how can this guy averaged over 5 yards a carry? We've seen him be able to be a really dynamic running back when he's healthy, especially after contact. He's a big guy. He's another one that falls forward a lot of times or gets those extra yards. And I thought he looked good in camp. He didn't really blow my doors off. And he's also a guy that really doesn't have much. He's not really great out of the backfield catching the ball. So can you trust him on third down? So, to me, it's just like, where does he fall in? And then now does he become a luxury? And I guess they're viewing him as a luxury. And, I guess they just rolled with the hot hand, and understandably so with Swift. I think he also left because Boston Scott had left with a head injury too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a combination of the head tapping out, and then he got hurt, and then they went with him. And then I think he had as we saw, he had a bad holding penalty that took away the touchdown to AJ Brown. So he's not really a third down option. But if Kenny's out again, he'll be up, and who knows, at that position you can always have injuries.
Jeff, would you agree with Nick Sirianni's assessment that the A.J. Brown thing on the sideline was a 2 out of 10, that it was just a big nothing burger? Where does it fall for you?
I don't think it's a nothing burger, but I do agree with a 2 out of 10. And I rewatched it, and I thought Nick made it worse by getting involved. I mean, you're the head coach. Just let the position coach handle it. Let those guys figure it out. I just didn't think it was necessary for him to get involved. Of course, he said he didn't get involved afterwards, and then he got caught out on it.
Yeah.
And we know what happened there.
Yeah.
So he just they made it worse than it really needed to be by, playing kind of, who's the old guy from Hogan's Hero? I see nothing,
Schultz,
the old
Schultz.
Yeah. Deny everything, which is kind of what I did for the first 18 years of my life.
Try 22 first. 22.
Probably 50 years of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've gotten to know AJ a little bit, and his family. I went down there. You guys,
you went to Mississippi. That's why I think you're a good person to talk to about this. Yeah.
Look, so it's not like he doesn't have. He's not a diva, but it's not that he doesn't have this fierce competitiveness in him, and that he's not going to let it be known that, I'm open, I want the ball, sort of thing. And I think that's what happened there. Plus, you have to also factor in the dynamic that exists between Jalen and AJ. I even put out on Twitter there, part of my story was a very small part of the story, but I had a lot of information just about how when Jalen showed up in Starkville, and first it was he was trying to recruit him to Alabama, but then they became friends, and then he'd come and work out with him, and they'd get in line and they'd run and they'd work out passes. And AJ's position coach at Starkville was like, "Oh, you see him? They were bickering out there. It'd be like, hey, you don't run the route, you don't run fast enough. Oh, you were in the right spot. He's like, they were like brothers, and they were working out, preparing for, I guess, maybe the possibility that they would be quarterback and receiver on the same team. So I think that all factors into it as well. I wish AJ would have been by his locker stall afterwards. I think it's pretty easy I'm of the belief, not just because I'm in the media side, but also I've seen it from the other side and talked to people from the other side. Get out ahead of it. Stand in front of your locker room, say, hey, I'm competitive. I wanted the ball. We got into it a little bit. And, I don't think it's a huge ordeal. And that stuff does happen all the time. Sometimes cameras catch it. Sometimes they don't. It happens. That being said, I don't think it's a nothing burger. I think it's something certainly that needs to be covered. But I agree with the kind of the two, watching it again. Maybe because he had the visor on, you couldn't see his eyes. But from what I gathered, it's all been settled behind the scenes. No big deal. Back to normal. Now, if I may blather on just a little bit longer, if there is an issue that you could take from this and be concerned about, is AJ concerned because his quarterback is having trouble seeing him down the field?
Yeah.
Is this more not AJ really? I think AJ's competitive. I think he wants the ball, but it's also like, hey, what's wrong with you, Jalen? Why aren't is that? So that's something that could be something we have to keep an eye on.
Jeff, the Eagles went into the last game with 3 outside linebackers. They had Christian Ellis play in the middle, and he played well. Can they continue to go this trend? Do they need to find a true inside backer, depending on how long the Kobe Dean may be out, or can they survive with the way they're going about it now?
Yeah, I mean, Nicholas Morrow they called up, and
Morrow,
Morrow is the one that they end up putting at the mic. To some surprise, because he'd been in the practice squad and he hadn't been called up. He did okay, and Cunningham really bounced back from that first game. I thought,
yes,
he did not perform well in that first game. I think he'd be the first to say so. Ellis as well, which is probably why Morrow got the call ahead of him to be the mic. I still feel like that's an area of concern, though, and teams are going to go right at it. The Vikings had some success in the middle of the field. Hawkinson did have some catches. I think those came more against the safeties than they did the linebackers. So I got to give that, I wrote a column about it. I looked at the film, whatever. I wrote, hey, this linebacker issue again looks like it's going to be a problem. But I got to be completely honest. I thought the linebackers performed well against the Vikings. That being said, it's one game. Let's see how it plays out here over the next several games, because the Kobe Dean is going to be out for at least probably 2 or 3 more games.
Yeah.
Jeff, linebackers aside, let's look at real versus fake concerns. What's a real concern for you that you've seen through 2 games?
I think Jalen, obviously, we have to address. Is definitely one I'd be concerned about. And I think that's partnered with the play calling of Brian Johnson. Although I give Brian Johnson credit. I mean, hey, inside zone, it's working. Keep calling it out well. And he did.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't have any kind of ego about, hey, I still want to do this, that, and the other thing. No, he pounded it and they won the game. And they should have won going away.
Yep.
With all the turnovers that the Vikings had. Let's see. Well, I thought, punting was, and they're trying to correct that under the radar issue, and they went and got a new punter, and Aaron Sippis is gone. I think that's real. Linebacker, as I mentioned, I think is real. Second safety is real. Slot cornerback has to be real, right? You lost your starter. But I'm not concerned about the offensive line. I'm not concerned about the defensive line. I think they have enough running backs, the wide receivers, this whole AJ thing. I'm not concerned about that. Dallas Goedert, don't worry. He's going to get his catches. Sean Desai, I don't think I'm as concerned as maybe some people. I've liked some of the stuff I've seen him doing. And I think that the fact that, they weren't able to kind of put that team away, first of all, give credit to the Vikings, and Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL, or 1 or 3 of them. There's like maybe 2 other guys maybe you put in that conversation. He's a tough guy to cover. I mean, let's just be truthful here. But he was decimated in the secondary. I mean, then when you lost Maddox, all of a sudden you had only 3 starters that were healthy at that point, 3 of the 6 that you really kind of rely on.
Yep.
Or maybe even 2 of 6. So anyway, I think he had a scramble there. So look, I mean, we got to see how this plays out over a long course when it goes to decide. But that's kind of where I sit.
Jeff, we look at the back end, and we don't know the status yet of Bradbury. Now, these head injuries and concussion protocols are so crazy. A lot of times we see these guys come back from one game to the next. Sometimes they're extended a little bit longer. Number one, do you have any insight as we sit here today in terms of where Bradbury might be in the concussion protocol? And number two, who do you bring up? Who do you feel more comfortable with the young kids to fill some of the voids? Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, so on and so forth.
Yeah. So Bradbury, I guess the injury report will probably say where he is in terms of, the concussion protocol. That's the one I'm not really, I got a better sense of maybe the guys who had the rib injuries than him.
Okay.
Now Nick says that he can't talk about it because he's in the protocol, which is not true. He can talk up as much as he wants about
your coach is something else, man.
James Bradbury, where he is in the protocol. In fact, Andy Reid used to give us they're at. Now I'm sure the league maybe has told them, hey, don't talk as much about concussions or whatever. But I just want to be very clear about that. There's nothing legally that's preventing him from talking about James Bradbury. He just doesn't want to talk about it. And hey, you know what? I completely understand. So it's my job to find out behind the scenes what's going on. So Bradbury, I'm not exactly sure where he stands. Now, in terms of who's going to replace him if he's out, and then you have to put. Well, I guess if he's out, then you don't have the option of putting him inside. It'll be Job on the outside, and it'll be Mario Goodrich on the inside until they decide what they're going to do. In terms of Keely Ringo is on the active roster. He'd have to be up ahead of Eli Ricks right now. Although I thought Ricks looked better in training.
I agree.
Than Keely Ringo. So if they were pressed, maybe they would just call Ricks up and then have him play ahead of Ringo on game day if that's the way they felt.
Jeff, how much have you had a chance to see the Cowboys, maybe the rest of the division? You're talking about 3 teams 2-0, including Washington, Giants 1-1, Giants with some injury issues. They play Thursday night. But how have those teams, what stood out to you? Have they been kind of what you thought they were going to be? Who's been better? Where do you fall with those squads?
Yeah, snippets of all 3 teams. Probably the Cowboys the most, especially this past game. Really good. Clearly, the Jets aren't that good of offense. The Giants aren't that good of an offense. So maybe inflated a little bit, what everyone's saying about them right now. But clearly, up front, they have as good as any defensive line. And Micah Parsons is probably one of the best defensive players, if not the best defensive player in the NFL right now. So that's a concern. They were a good team last year, right?
Yep.
They got pretty close to beating the 49ers. They would have played the Eagles in the NFC Championship. So they're in the conversation. But it's a long season. Let's see how it plays out. But, yeah, I think we always thought that they're going to be in the conversation in terms of Eagles-Cowboys. I think the Eagles have the edge in terms of the coaching. But they have a great defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn. And maybe, McCarthy calling the plays, maybe that helps him out. I don't know. The Giants – I was getting texts from people being like, God, this team is horrible, blah, blah, blah.
67-0 to start the season. Yeah.
And all of a sudden they turned around and win. And I was, I picked them to go to be like the 3rd wild card team. So how dumb do I look? But maybe not as dumb because they won the game.
Yeah, it's early.
Because I thought, well, there's got to be a team that was kind of on the upswing last year that's going to make it that maybe. And people were talking them up a little bit. I wasn't really completely like talking them up in terms of like, hey, they could do something. Yeah. And I just did I'm not sold on Daniel Jones.
Yep.
I think they went out and got him guys to help them, but like, I don't know, some of those guys just don't really kind of pop to me. Paris Campbell, and then you got Darren Waller. All good players, but are they on the upswing as opposed to being on the downswing? And Saquon Barkley at this point, and he's been banged up. Good player, love him, but as a former Penn Stater, but so that and then the Commanders are 2-0.
It's smoke and mirrors.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I guess some of that has to do with the opponents that they played.
Cardinals and that Denver game was weird. They went on a 32-3 run. In that game.
I know. I guess Eric Bieniemy deserves some credit.
He does.
They had players. That defensive line. That Montez is it Sweat?
Yeah,
it's awesome. So it's not like they're like bottom feeders. in the NFC, but to have only one loss out of the whole entire NFC East, that's pretty.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, it's a team that had 3 playoff teams last year too.
Hey, Jeff, across the league, the first 2 weeks, we've seen a lot of sloppy football in the NFL, which is to be expected. But let's stay in the NFC in particular, and we always stack them like Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, Niners. Is there another team in the NFC that you're keeping a close eye on, and why?
Well, it's got to be the 49ers.
No, I'm saying outside.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry.
3, outside of the Eagles, Cowboys, and Niners, is there another team you're keeping an eye on?
I still feel like there's a significant drop off to the next team.
Okay.
I guess the Saints are 2-0.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone, but that division has done better than people thought they would do. Seahawks had a win after our first week loss.
Yep.
Are you buying any of Tampa, Jeff? You know, the next opponent here?
Tampa's 2-0, right?
Yeah.
Well, I like Todd Bowles. I think he's a smart guy. He's obviously one of the better defensive minds in the league. That'll be a test for the Eagles. We saw what he did to Jalen Hurts in the playoff game a couple years ago. So can he kind of replicate that again? He doesn't have the same type of talent, I guess, on that side that he previously has had, but certainly still has players on defense. No, I think what we're going to see, I mean, like the fact that the Eagles have played, I wouldn't say played poorly, but played as below their standard that we saw last year and still be 2-0 is pretty amazing. But they just have superior talent than most teams, right? And that's going to save the day a lot of times when the coaching or the play calling isn't up to snuff. And then, like you said, it's early in the season. There's going to be mistakes. The Eagles last year in the first couple of games, that game against the Lions, there were tons of mistakes in that game. The Vikings game a little cleaner, but they beat the team. Well, aside from that late touchdown, they would have beat the Vikings this year. They beat the Vikings by more points than they did even last year. So, and I always, you got to put these things in the proper context too, because everyone's like, oh, in Philadelphia, it's like the end of the world. It's the end of the world. They're 2-0. Yeah, exactly. Look at the rest of the league and the teams and how they performed, and look at some of the better teams. The fact that the Bengals are 0-2, right? Who saw that coming? The Chargers are 0-2. 2 of the best quarterbacks, 0-2.
Denver with all their hype, Jeff, 0-2.
Right, 0-2. So, but we've seen this rodeo before, teams jumping out to 2-0 starts and then reality catching up to them.
Yep.
All right, Jeff, listen, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Always appreciate your time. And again, check out Jeff's work at Jeff_McClain on X or Twitter, Inquirer.com. And he's got the great podcast. I tell everybody to listen, Uncovering the Birds. Always very interesting subject matter on that. Jeff, appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
Good
guys. Always enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. That is Jeff McClain, kind enough to hop on for a couple minutes there. All right, Derek, we'll come back. Got some more NFL stuff I want to throw your way. Also some college football related stuff to that crazy Colorado game, which things get weird after that one, which I'll tell you about when we come back. Some numbers for you as well. Birthdays, movies, the whole nine. You don't want to miss any of it. Don't go anywhere. That's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take. Right back.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Putting up with this anymore.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Back, final segment of the show. Appreciate you hanging with us. He's Derek. I am Rob. We're Sports Take. If you could hit the like button, appreciate it. If you missed any of our interviews earlier, we had former Eagle Leonard Weaver on to talk about the present state of the Birds and also the injury last night to Nick Chubb. He went through a very similar injury that actually ended his football career. So, yeah, he knows of what he speaks. But if you missed any of that, or you missed Jeff McClain, any of Jeff, you can always just go to JAKIB Sports YouTube channel and check it out, or any of the shows. We always appreciate that you guys go back and watch, and thank you to everybody. All right, so a couple things here, D-Gun. So we talked about that crazy Colorado State game on Saturday night, which was wild, right? I mean, it was chippy, it was highly entertaining. Here's the number. Keep in mind, this was a 10 o'clock East Coast kickoff, right? 9.3 million viewers, the most watched late night college football game ever on ESPN. That game didn't end until 2:30.
Dude, let me tell you something. Every time Deion's Colorado team takes the field, there's some new record being established.
Yep.
The man is making that university money like they've never seen, giving that university notoriety, even back in their heyday in the 80s.
Yep.
That college team didn't get nearly the notoriety this team has gotten in 3 weeks.
Yes.
What a stroke of genius and luck on the part of the University of Colorado to get not just a new head coach, but somebody who's outspoken, visible, flamboyant as a Deion Sanders.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And they face Oregon this Saturday. It's the 3:30 game on ESPN or ABC. Excuse me, it's an ABC game. Now, this is the part of sports that where we've gotten so out of control here. So there was a cheap shot on Travis Hunter along the sideline. Travis Hunter's the two-way player for Colorado. He's going to be out a couple of weeks with it. But Henry Blackburn was the safety who hit him.
Yes.
So someone decided that they were going to post both Henry Blackburn's address and cell phone number and his family, including his parents' address and cell phones, which turned into death threats for him and his family to the point where police had to get involved. This is the sick part of what goes on in our society now. Now, thankfully, to Deion's credit, Deion Sanders spoke today about how this needs to stop. We don't encourage this. He's a young man. He has forgiven him. Travis Hunter has forgiven him. There's no place for this. So Deion's trying to squelch this thing too, but this has obviously been a very scary situation for this guy and his family over the last couple of days.
There's a lot of sick individuals in our society, Rob, and that goes without saying. When you have the nerve and the audacity to take time to threaten a young man's family, I wish the FBI could step in. And I guarantee you a lot of people that made these threats do it on these anonymous accounts and these fake accounts. Now, supposedly with our technology, you can track down a lot of where these fake accounts. I wish they would find them and lock these people up and teach them a valuable lesson.
Yeah,
because that is sick. You know, okay. The young man gets hurt. He's going to miss a couple of games. I get it. You know, he didn't die. Thank God. You know, we're not talking about a death. And even if it was a death, you still don't have the right to threaten to kill somebody and their family. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
This is where sports gets out of control.
Yeah.
And this is the ugliness of sports that I hate to be a part of, man, and have to talk about. But we see this all the time. Who was a football player last week?
Last week got a racial epithet thrown his way because he didn't have a good game.
Alexander Madison.
Yeah, it was Vikings fans, not Eagles fans. It was Vikings fans. Not that even matters, but Vikings fans, you know, going after him because he didn't have a good game.
And this is why I say our society, Rob, is you know, in a lot of ways has come a long way, but we have so far to go.
No doubt.
As a people and as a nation.
Yeah.
You know, that this young man, he's just playing football. Was he overzealous? Yes. Did he take an unnecessary shot? Yes. We see it happen at every levels of football.
Yep.
Guys take cheap shots. Kareem Jackson right now could be suspended because 2 consecutive games took devastating shots.
Headshots.
He hit the
Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas dipped the lead with the crown of his helmet right into his face.
After the catch was secured, he launched himself and shot himself into Logan Thomas and knocked that man out. Yeah. And he's already been fined over $14,000 for a previous transgression the earlier week. This happens in football.
Crazy.
Oh, come on, man. Seriously?
We got to get it together.
Family? I mean, people get it together mentally, man. It's not. It's sports.
Yep.
My goodness.
Well said. Well said. Last thing on Colorado. So
you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead. You said Colorado. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that their projected win total before the season by ESPN Analytics, 2.7. So they've already surpassed it through 3 games.
And including this Saturday's game, they still have 6 games against ranked teams. So we're going to find out just how good this Colorado team is.
Yeah.
But you're talking about stuff outside of football that shouldn't take place. And I think I sent you this to Tone. I just saw this today. Jason Whitlock, you know, gets on his platform again and says Deion told 60 Minutes God sent him to Boulder to resurrect the Colorado program. But if you look at the sideline Saturday night, it looked more like a gangster rap party than a Sunday morning service. I mean, come on. Seriously.
Like, what did The Rock being there offset because there were a couple rappers there, Kawhi Leonard, that turned into a gangster rap concert?
I mean, seriously, how often, Rob, do we see entertainers at sporting events on sidelines, especially invited by the team?
All the time.
At the college ranks and the pros.
Yep.
You mean to tell me you haven't seen prominent entertainers?
Go to a Lakers or a Knicks game and look at the courtside seats.
Oh, my goodness. Really? Do you need clicks on your platform that badly? You come out with something like this?
That guy does.
That's unbelievable, man. I don't get it, dude.
I don't understand. Whatever. It's like, to me, it's made Colorado football entertaining. Nobody's done anything wrong. There hasn't been any kind of issues with anybody who's been there. It's a fun atmosphere. It's a cool additional storyline to everything else that's happening in college football. I don't understand what that kind of response is. Mel Tucker, speaking of college football, Gunner, looks like he's out. He's been told that he's going to be fired. The school has the intention to fire him pending sexual misconduct case. Tucker's not taking it lying down, though. He said that there are other motives at play and that there's been a bias against him throughout the process.
Oh
yeah. He said in a statement to ESPN, he claims his firing is a miscarriage of justice and came because Miss Tracy's improper public disclosure of the entire 1,200-page investigation file regarding his baseless complaint against him. He said, let's be clear. I don't believe MSU plans to fire me because I admitted to an entire consensual private relationship with another adult who gave one presentation at MSU at my behest over 2 years ago. By firing him, Michigan is aiming to avoid paying Tucker more than $79 million remaining on his contract. So you do wonder, you know what I mean? You do wonder what's going on.
It's out there now. Now Michigan State has a scramble and see how, because they haven't officially fired him yet.
Correct. They have not fired him officially yet. Yep.
We know he's suspended without pay.
Right.
but he hasn't been fired yet. So now
right.
Michigan State, based on the allegations of this coaching question, now they're going to really have to treat this with kid gloves now.
Right, because it sounds like Mel Tucker is not just going to go away. He's going to go after you. So you better be right on all these fronts.
And I'm thinking about, and if I'm Michigan State, I'm thinking about, okay, what else could he possibly have to use as fire against us? We have to be real meticulous about this.
And Mel better make sure they don't have anything against him. But anyway, like we always talk about this. It's the he said, she said, he said, she said, whatever. There's two parties who really know what went down here, and that's Mel Tucker and the person they hired for that, sexual harassment seminar that they gave. I don't know. It'll come out in the wash. I'm hoping, we'll find out what the deal is. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you, man.
But why would you put yourself in that situation, man?
It's not right. It was not a good move. Yeah. But the thing is, you have to be so careful in these high profile jobs. Even like, is it right that you have to act that way? That maybe, JAKIB Public doesn't know, but it is what it is. That's the gig. That's the gig. You get paid a lot of money. You have high exposure. It is what it is. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to see what ends up happening there. With that's for sure. It'll be interesting. The Giants are not ruling Saquon Barkley out, Derek, for this game on Thursday. Brian Dable took to the podium today, said he's healing quicker. For those of you who can speak, unlike me, he is healing quicker than they anticipated. And he said, I wouldn't count on that just yet. Somebody asked him if he was out for the game. That's all. I mean, it doesn't mean he's going to play, but he's not definitely out. That's all.
That to me, that's the part of gamesmanship that's going on right now. Did you see his ankle roll when he twisted?
It didn't look good. I saw him being helped off the field too, where he could barely put any weight on it.
And especially when you're talking about your ankles are a significant part of your ability to cut and push off and drive forward.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me the initial report goes from 3 weeks minimum to now possibly playing 4 days later after this injury? I'd
buy it more if it was a Sunday game or a Monday game as opposed to a Thursday game,
Yes. Now I don't see that at all. I just think it's gamesmanship right now to try to, well, first of all, you're not throwing the 49ers off, whether Barkley plays or not. You're not throwing the 49ers off, that defense off anyway. But I just think it's a little gamesmanship going on right now.
All right. I mentioned some Eagles who are still eligible for the Hall of Fame. And yes, I see the chat people. Yes, I can't speak. You're correct. So you got a bunch of guys who are first-time eligible here. Let me throw some names at you here. Some pretty good players.
Okay.
Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates.
Yep.
Right. I mean, they're eligible for the 24 class. Brandon Marshall, Jordy Nelson, Jamal Charles, TJ Lang, Josh Sitton, Max Unger, Haloti Ngata. I'd say the first two.
And maybe
Ngata.
Maybe Unger. Maybe Unger.
Unger was really good. Great center.
Yeah, I remember. Maybe Unger. Yeah, I see two definites there. Jordy Nelson's not getting on in there.
No, he's a very good. He's a very good, not great.
Yeah, but he's not getting in there. And a number of those other names you mentioned as well, they'll be on the ballot for years to come.
Yeah. But I definitely, I mean, man, you look at Peppers. Peppers has 159.5 career sacks. That's the fourth most since that became official. And Antonio Gates,
what he did as a tight end,
his nuts were his numbers were insane.
His nuts. It's getting late in the show now.
I'm getting goofy here. He has 955 catch. A catch.
His nuts.
These nuts.
Show's over, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night.
Show's over.
Thanks, everybody. Drive home safely.
Good night, everybody.
Oh my God, man. Oh, wow.
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
Sorry, people. This is my first time with this mouth. I'm getting used to it. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome, dude. Oh my goodness.
He played with big nuts. No. So 16 years for him. 11,000 receiving yards, 116 touchdowns, and 955 catches. I mean, come on. If those two aren't locks, I don't know I don't
What
know.
is? Yes. This show's over. We got like 10 minutes left. The show's over, Rob. You just blew it. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, here we go. It's all coming down
And
now.
his nuts.
Words are hard.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. You know what, though? I love these lighter moments. These unscripted lighter moments, I love them.
Oh, that's great. Oh my God. That's what it's all about. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're even going to be able to do birthdays at this point as goofy as I've gotten here with some of the stuff.
These nuts.
All right. Let's try it. We'll do a little birthdays. Let's see how badly I butcher some of these names and birthdays. Oh my God. All right. Jimmy Fallon, late night host. You see, he's under a lot of heat. Did you see where his staffers are all complaining about his mood swings?
Yeah, what's up with that, man?
You either get good Jimmy or bad Jimmy, and bad Jimmy days, everybody's afraid. Yeah.
He seems like just a happy, pleasant person in front of the camera.
Yeah, he does. He does seem like that. But
we all have those other sides, though.
Yes. One day I will learn to speak. And that day is not today, Mr. Taz.
Oh, my goodness.
That's Kevin.
Look at Jimmy. Look at Kwan. Jimmy Fallon's nuts in the news.
All right. So he's 49 today. The actor David McCallum is 90 years young today.
From Uncle.
Yes. One of your favorites, the television Batman, Adam West.
Yes.
Born on this day in 1928. Yes.
He was the original Batman.
He was. With the bam and the pow and all the signs. Yeah,
dude, those costumes back in the day looked like Halloween get up.
And he was like out of shape. It was not a flattering costume that Adam West was wearing.
Did you ever see the episode where him and Robin were dancing with Catwoman or somewhere else? And you had them going like this.
Yes.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Seriously?
So at one point he's like fighting a shark. It was great. It was great. Jeremy Irons, the actor, is 75 years old today.
Great actor.
He is a great actor. Mama Cass Elliott, who was from the Mamas and the Papas, died a long time ago, but she was born on this day, 1941. Trisha Yearwood, country singer, is 49 today.
Wait, 49 or 59?
Oh, 59. 59. Sorry.
All right, Rob.
I tried to give her 10 years, man. Come on.
Right, Rob, I got a question for you. 50. She is 59 and still
still strong.
Okay. All right.
Just still strong. Yeah.
All
right. Trey Young is 25 years old today. Sana Lathan, I believe that's the correct pronunciation. Excellent actress. 52.
Yeah, Sanaa Lathan.
Sanaa Lathan is 52 years old.
I loved her in Aliens versus Predators. Great role.
She was great in that. I like her in everything she's in.
Yep, Blade. She was in Blade too. So
she's jacked too. Like she's cut.
Yes.
Allison Sweeney, she's an actress and a host, is 47 years old today. The model Twiggy is 74 years old today. Yep. Brian Epstein, who was like the Beatles manager, he died very young of a drug overdose, but he was born on this day, 1934. The great Niles Rodgers is 70 today. Man, what a prolific artist he has been. Lita Ford, the singer, is 65 today. Randolph Mantooth, one of the greatest names in acting. He was in Emergency from back in the day, but Randolph Mantooth is 78 today. Stephon Gilmore, now the Cowboys, 33 years old today, still performing at a very high level. I'll tell you that. Joan London, formerly Good Morning America, is 73 today. Bill Medley, the great singer, 83 today. DeJounte Murray, now a Hawk, is 27 years old today. The great Joe Morgan,
Absolutely.
Born on this day, 1943. All right, I threw this one in there, Derek, because I have a personal story. Sherry O'Terry, who was formerly on Saturday Night Live, is 61 today.
Yeah.
My aunt used to babysit her.
What?
My aunt, she lived on my aunt's street in Upper Darby, and my aunt babysat her all the time.
I didn't even know she was from Philly.
Yes, she's a Philly girl. She was like 3 doors down from my aunt, and my aunt would watch her like a lot back in the day.
Did you ever get to meet her? Did you ever?
I met her when we were kids. She's older. She's like, I was probably like 7, and she was probably like 17 or 18.
Yes, 10
but
years.
She was always like, this was like, she was around, and I would see her, and she would always, like running around.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
That's cool, man. Your 15 seconds of fame.
That was it. Soledad O'Brien, news anchor, also it was on Real Sports as well, which unfortunately is coming to an end. She's 57 today.
Yep.
The great Duke Snyder.
Yes.
Born on this day in 1926. Man, what a phenomenal player he was for Brooklyn back in the day. Yeah, that's all I have for birthdays. Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, you got Danielle Panabaker from Friday the 13th movie. She's 36 today.
Mm-hmm.
Eva Moore, actress and former pro wrestler, is 39. Rosemary Harris, great actress who went from playing Aunt May Parker in 3 of the Spider-Man movies to playing in a weird movie, but it was pretty good, called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Okay.
96 today.
Okay.
Nick Massey, guitarist for the Four Seasons, born on this day in 1927. Katrina Bowden, who played played in movies like Scary Movie 5, Piranha 3D, is 35. Victor Williams from The King of Queens.
He's good. I like Victor.
53. Columbus Short, great choreographer and actor, played in Stomp the Yards, Cadillac Records, Scandal, is 41 today. Raja Bell, former NBA player, is 47 on this day.
Yeah.
Who else do I have here? Mel Stewart, who was the original Henry Jefferson on All in the Family. Remember?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, he in the All in the Family, before they switched over to Sherman Hemsley, there was a different,
that's him. He played, it wasn't George, he played Henry Jefferson.
Yeah, he was Henry's brother. I mean, George's brother.
He was George's brother, yes.
Yes.
C.J. McCollum, New Orleans Pelicans point guard, is 32. Candy Dulfer, one of the greatest jazz saxophonists I've ever heard. She's an incredible jazz musician. I love jazz. She's 54. Ryan Suckup, punter, who's a free agent still out there.
Right.
He's 37.
Okay. Good ones. Okay. All right. Birthdays now.
No,
movies. Sorry.
Man, you're all over the place. You okay?
Whew, I'm putting to the finish line here.
How many fingers am I holding up, bro?
5. All right. Goodfellas, one of my all-time favorite movies ever, is 1990, came out. Still running it quite a bit. You can catch it a lot on cable. Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand, 1968. Moneyball, Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, 2011. Best in Show, the year 2000. LA Confidential, great movie.
Yes.
1997. Walk Among Tombstones, good movie, solid. 2014.
Yep.
Not bad. This Is Where I Leave You is also 2014. 2003, Underworld.
Yep.
And 2014, Maze Runner.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Oh man, that's it.
You got them all.
All right, we're on the same page. All right, so
Robert Driscoll says, Rob, you probably need a bite to eat.
I do. I you know what? I think you're right, Robert. I did not properly. I wasn't nourished properly before the show started. What else is new? So let me catch you up on what the Eagles have going on here. So the media schedule is as follows, Derek. They're back at it tomorrow at practice. Coordinators will speak Thursday. Practice again. It'll be Sirianni, locker room, and Hurts. Friday practice again. Saturday practice again. Normally Saturday's a walkthrough. Sunday's going to be the walkthrough. Then they hop a flight for Tampa. And let me see if that I mentioned the line in that game moved down to 5.5. It was 6.5. It is, let's see. It has moved to 5.5. It's still 5.5 right now.
Still 5.5. Okay.
So your Monday games are the Eagles, Bucks 7:15, Rams, Bengals at 8:15. So you got a pretty desperate Bengal team who we don't know yet if Joe Burrow is going to play in that game. We'll dig a little bit more into Tampa tomorrow, because I'll tell you, what they're doing right now is pretty impressive. They have Mayfield in a good spot, I think, and he's not committing, any kind of stupid mistakes.
Yep.
They're absolutely getting after the quarterback. They had 6 sacks last week. Now it was the Bears. So you have to take all that into under advisement when you're looking at this thing. But still, I mean, nonetheless, there's they're playing a lot better. I think this game's going to be more difficult, as is the Rams game, than we thought when we looked at the schedule initially. And that's the hard and dangerous thing about the wins and losses when you do that.
I think it's going to be real interesting. Baker Mayfield has not turned the ball over, and the Eagles have 6 turnovers defensively in the first 2 games. Right. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see who wins that turnover battle.
Yeah.
Because the first 2 games, the turnover battle has been directly responsible for the Eagles finding a good measure of success in both games.
Mm-hmm.
So how well can Baker protect the ball this time against this Eagles defense, this pass rush, this run defense? Going to be real interesting.
Absolutely. All right, let's we'll put a bow on this thing. Hopefully I'll learn how to talk tomorrow. We'll see. You got to stay tuned. Yes. Want to thank Tone DeShields for producing the program. Thank you, Tone. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Appreciate you guys, everybody streaming, everybody listening. D-Gun and I are back at it tomorrow at the same time. Don't go anywhere. Yep. You have the National Football Show with Dan Cilio coming your way next. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you tomorrow. Same time for D-Gun. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take.